Прийшли окупанти до нас в Україну, форма новенька, воєнні машини, та трохи поплавився їх інвентар. Байрактар, Байрактар. Російські танкісти сховались в кущі, щоб лаптем посьорбати довбані щі, та трохи у чах перегрівся навар. Байрактар, Байрактар. Приперли зі сходу до нас барани для восстановлення
великої страни.
Найкращий пастух баранячих отар. Байрактар, Байрактар. Їх доводи всяке озброєння різне, потужні ракети, машини залізні, у нас на всі доводи є коментар. Байрактар, Байрактар. Вони захопити хотіли нас зразу, а ми зачаїли на орків образу з російських бандитів, робить примар. Байрактар, Байрактар. Російська поліція справи заводить, там вбивцю рашистів ніяк не знаходить, хто винен, що в нашому полі глухар. Байрактар, Байрактар. Веде пропаганду кремлівський урод, слова пропаганди ковтає народ, тепер нове слово знає цар.
Байрактар.
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 Yes.
The Leaf Spring Army sends its regards.
Hello, everyone. I'm the Enforcer, and I'm accompanied by Enforcer Matt.
And good evening, folks. It's Enforcer Matt, and welcome back to day 1149 of the War News Stream. And we have very big news today that China was caught sending weapons to Russia today by Ukrainian President Zelensky. And also, Israel's preparing a possible unauthorized attack on Iran right now. And Ukraine has destroyed Russia in a 30-hour offensive along the front lines. And we have very big news today. And it's good to see you all once again.
And of course, we're going to be covering the past 24 hours of news from around the world, as we've been hearing significant news from every single corner of the globe, as the Chinese have been exposed in a major way on two fronts for providing satellite pictures and images to the Yemeni Houthis, assisting them in striking or attempting to attack U.S. carrier groups and naval forces operating around the area of the west coast of Yemen. We have also been able to hear at the exact same time that President Zelensky will be presenting evidence incredibly soon of Chinese involvement in providing direct military and arms support to the Russian Federation in the war in Ukraine. All of this happening within the last 24 hours and putting the Chinese under a massive spotlight, as it does appear that the People's Republic of China is directly involved in some way, shape, or form in most conflicts that are involving U.S. and Western interests as a whole. We have also been able to hear that at the exact same time, the United States of America has conducted a major airstrike on the Yemeni Houthis forces at Al Jazeera, or more so, Salif. And we have been able to see that those oil facilities have been hit quite tremendously, and it has been destroyed thoroughly, as it appears that the Israelis are also planning on conducting their own military strike without approval or planning with the United States of America against the Islamic Republic of Iran here in the very near future. We have also been able to hear some other news as well about the U.S. withdrawal from Syria, as several hundred U.S. forces have already been withdrawn as of today, and it appears that U.S. forces will no longer be inside of the Syrian Arab Republic here within the next few months. We've also heard the first idea of a nuclear deal being proposed by the Islamic Republic of Iran, which can only be taken as a joke at this point and will most likely not be considered by U.S. diplomats. At the exact same time, we've also been able to hear of major troop deployments by Britain and France into Estonia today, as nearly 16,000 troops from both France and Britain are now being relocated into the most northern Baltic state, as it appears that escalations with the Russian Federation continues. We have also been able to hear of significant news as the Ukrainians have continued their attacks on the 112th Brigade's facilities at the city of Shoya, as more attacks occurred overnight, once again causing more significant damage. This is all coming on top of the major Ukrainian offensive that was conducted today near to the small town of Nadia, just outside of the western area of Svatove, as the Ukrainians were able to conduct a lightning 30-hour offensive, reclaiming the village and a large amount of the surrounding areas, and throwing Russian offensive efforts further north at Kupiansk and further south into the Crimean Forest into a state of chaos, as it appears that Svatove may now be directly threatened in the future by another major Ukrainian offensive, which may break through entirely and make it to the major crossroads of the city of Svatove. Meanwhile, we've also been able to hear that the Ukrainian armed forces have continued to make ground in the area of Belgorod and the area of Pokrovsk as well, and also some additional ground inside of Torretsk as battles continue to rage in all of these directions. Not only that, we have also been able to hear that the President Zelenskyy has stated an open intention to attempt a purchase of around 10 Patriot air defense systems from the United States of America here in the future. And as of today, we have been able to hear that the United States of America is strongly considering the approval of the purchase of Patriots by the state of Ukraine and the further delivery of them into the future. We have a great deal of news today. It's actually quite a significant amount compared to most other days, and we are happy to have a massive amount of y'all here with us tonight, as we are going to be getting into this news and knocking it out piece by piece. But it's most likely
by the way, why is it when big news starts coming out, it all comes out like a big bucket? It doesn't come out consistently across several days. It's okay, Thursday, April 17th, all hell's going to break loose on the news. That's today, basically, crazy stories from every corner.
It is absolutely insane. We always get huge news at the exact same time for pretty much every single corner of the world, which makes it incredibly hard to put it into a title and also to try and make a good thumbnail to emphasize everything that has happened in a single day. But nevertheless, a lot has happened. And moving on into the major news immediately, we're going to be hopping from place to place and largely talking about the exposure of Chinese operations, both inside the Middle East and Eastern Europe simultaneously, because while both of them are completely separate in their scope and what it means for the Western world or what is at stake in both of those conflicts, it does appear quite obvious and clear at this point that the People's Republic of China is involved on a grander international scale at this point in conducting operations that are not suitable to America's or the greater West's interests at large. And moving us on down into the most important area where this was exposed today, we were able to hear that there has been a major development that has been announced by the U.S. Department of State, meaning that this really cannot be denied. The U.S. Department of State confirms that the Chinese Changguang Satellite Technology Company, with close links to the People's Liberation Army, has been helping the Houthis in Yemen with targeting during their rocket attacks on U.S. Navy vessels. In short, to give you all a little bit of a summary of what has actually been done by the Changguang Satellite Technology Company, their satellites, like U.S. satellites, fly around the world in an endless orbit and are able to take a large amount of precise satellite pictures of the areas that they are orbiting that have a great deal of resolution quality to them, largely allowing them to see literally anything and everything, including vessels at sea that are underway. We have had a significant naval presence around the area of Western Yemen for months on end at this point, as the United States of America has been conducting an aggressive bombing campaign against the Yemeni Houthis inside of Western Yemen, involving a great deal of U.S. destroyers, U.S. cruisers, and also carrier strike groups such as the USS Harry S. Truman, the USS Carl Vinson, and soon to all be joined by the USS Nimitz, which is still inbound from the area of the Bremerton Naval Yard near to Seattle, and is still transiting the Pacific and making its way into the Middle East right now to be able to join in those bombing operations. It has appeared that the People's Republic of China has been providing satellite intelligence and data to the Yemeni Houthi forces for them to be able able to attempt successful anti-ship attacks against these U.S. forces and to also cause significant damage and the loss of life of U.S. service members in the hopes of providing that intelligence to the Houthis. It is an absolutely shocking development, considering that we were not expecting the People's Republic of China to be involved in any significant way in providing intelligence or supporting Yemeni Houthi operations, because while the Iranians and their operations are largely going to be beneficial in the long run to the People's Republic of China, such a sloppy and direct involvement by the People's Republic of China has usually been considered fairly unlikely, considering that the People's Republic of China usually likes to play on a more low-key sort of a playing field. Nevertheless, with their direct involvement that we have been hearing of today, it is quite obvious that the Chinese have far more sinister ambitions directly against the United States and really the Western world as a whole, and it's now becoming far more obvious. This is at the exact same time as, while we've been hearing this news that the Chinese have been helping the Houthis to directly target and put the lives of U.S. service members and equipment at danger around the area of the Gulf of Aden, that inside of the state of Ukraine, President Zelensky has made a shocking announcement, which he has stated he will be elaborating on incredibly soon, as he has now stated that Ukraine has intel suggesting China is supplying weapons to the Russian Federation, and he stated that he expects to provide more details within this next week. That was published by the Kyiv Independent and then further published by Phytux News. This is something that is also incredibly shocking as well, not as shocking as the Yemeni Houthis situation, but still largely shocking, because we had not heard up till this point any direct statements by the state of Ukraine or the United States of America that the People's Republic of China was directly supplying arms and equipment to the Russian Federation to help them further their war against the Ukrainian state. Now, with a statement by Zelensky, and considering that Zelensky has never made an unfounded statement like this before, we already know that there will be large damning evidence coming out here within the very near future, confirming that the People's Republic of China is actually supplying the Russian Federation directly with arms and equipment that's being used to attack the Ukrainian state. With each and every passing day at this point, it becomes clearer and clearer that this axis of power that many people have been speaking of, that largely consists of the North Koreans, the Chinese, the Russians, and the Iranians, largely working in unison to further destabilize and destroy the Western sphere of influence, either from the inside out or from the outside in, is becoming far more apparent, as we are seeing that the People's Republic of China, which is the largest member of this Axis power, is continuously being involved in multiple different ways, either in the war in Ukraine by providing some forms of support to the Russian Federation, or inside the Middle East as they are providing Iranian proxy forces with the direct intelligence and information required to be able to try and conduct the most successful attacks against U.S. naval vessels that are operating within the area. A lot of people I've really been wondering what the U.S. response to this will be, because we have not been able to hear a U.S. response, at least in a very strong wordage so far, either to the situation that happened in Yemen against U.S. naval forces, or the statements that Zelensky made that the People's Republic of China is openly supporting the Russian Federation and their war efforts against Ukraine. A clear statement really has not been made on either of them. Nevertheless, China was caught giving satellite images to the Yemeni Houthis to strike U.S. ships, and a lot of people are wondering what will be happening now. Although a direct statement has not been made, a lot of people are trying to take their best shot at what they believe the United States' actual reaction will be here incredibly soon. And it does appear that a decent amount of people are split amongst three different options. Some people are saying that the United States is going to just issue some stern words to the People's Republic of China. Others are saying that they're going to escalate the trade war even farther with the Chinese. And some are saying that the U.S. will threaten China militarily, which already has happened several times in the past over the past few weeks, not in a direct, overt, actual physical form, but more so in just a rhetorical form on national television. Nevertheless, a lot of people have had many different ideas and opinions on this. And Matthew, what are people thinking about this? And what are you thinking about it as well? What will the U.S. response be, in your opinion, to the damning news that's come out today, not only from the Middle East, but also from Ukraine?
All right. So certainly very damning news for China, because this comes amidst a really horrific trade relations with the United States right now, basically a embargo on Chinese goods coming to the United States. So it's coming at a very tense time that we're catching China doing these very bad things around the world in many different regions. So about 35% said the U.S. will just issue stern words, while 32% said the U.S. will escalate the trade war with China even more and to retaliate, and 26% said the U.S. will threaten China militarily. And this is a tricky one right here, because I would honestly argue that what the Chinese have done in Yemen is basically an act of war, providing targeting data to the Yemeni rebels, which is a terrorist group, to target U.S. commercial vessels and military vessels, that is essentially an act of war. So there's really no way around that. So unless the U.S. is going to give them some leeway to avoid a actual conflict from breaking out, I would say that this is right on the border of actually triggering something really horrific. So I would say that they're probably going to escalate the trade war even more, which is going to lead to a hot conflict between China and the United States at some point in the near future. Probably over Taiwan, like we've been saying, but it's a pretty tough one here, folks. This is actually very serious, and I don't think some people are understanding the gravity of how serious this act was by China. This one's pretty serious. But Enforcer, what say you?
This is incredibly serious because the People's Republic of China has openly stated on a diplomatic level that they are neutral in regards to the Ukraine war and are largely looking for a ceasefire to be achieved and for both sides to be respected. And in the situation in the Middle East, the People's Republic of China has made no statements whatsoever supporting the Iranians or their proxy forces or supporting the United States. As far as the Chinese have tried to present themselves on a diplomatic field, they have tried to present themselves as neutrally as possible. The information that's coming out today is incredibly damning because it's actually showing that they are not neutrally aligned at all, and their diplomatic front is nothing more than an extension of their lies as they continue to push their own objectives inside of the Middle East and inside of the Russian Federation in regards to the Ukraine war. They are openly hostile against the United States of America and Western interests as a whole. That is against their interests, and for them to be able to achieve the kind of position that they would like in the world, they have to weaken and erode the control that the United States of America has over most of the world, as well as the rest of our Western alliance. For this reason, I believe that the United States of America, also due to the situation on Taiwan, may see that we actually start to get into a military confrontation in the future because of these actions. It is quite obvious at this point, even if the trade war was to peacefully resolve itself in some way through a negotiated settlement, that the People's Republic of China and the United States relationship is beginning to strain so heavily that not even the economic alliance, or not really economic alliance, but major economic partnership that we have right now can really salvage the destroyed relationship that we have with them. And for this reason, I do strongly believe that we'll probably be seeing that the People's Republic of China will most likely attempt an invasion of Taiwan within the next several years, and the United States of America will most likely militarily come to the defense of the island of Taiwan. Crazily enough, Matthew and me were talking about this today, and there was actually a lot of parallels here. This is paralleling almost exactly the lead-in to the Second World War, as far as the United States' position in this is, and as far as really Europe's position in the Middle East's position is as well. And I'll quickly explain how it's analogous in all situations. Right now, we have an expansionist country in the area of Europe that is heavily fueled by nationalist ideas or imperialist ambitions to reclaim land which they claim is theirs, filled with people that they consider to be ethnically and really morally inferior to the home or the what would we call it? The home race for the large part of the Russians. And instead of the Germans in World War II attempting this expansion eastwards, the Russian Federation is actually attempting this expansion westwards to take over most of Eastern Europe, starting with Ukraine. This is pretty much at this phase of World War II, this is very much similar to the lead up to the Germans invading Poland, although there are some differences at least in that regard, but it's incredibly similar. Meanwhile, in the Middle East, during this time leading up to World War II, the Middle East was actually largely divided up by the French and the British in what were called mandates, which were these regions of control where the British controlled the areas of Israel, at the time called Palestine, Jordan, Iraq, and Kuwait, as a part of a giant pretty much a mandate for the large part. And what the British were doing during this time is trying to come up with a way that within 20 years' time, after getting control of these mandates, they would be able to release several new countries into the world that would be stable enough to survive. The French-controlled Lebanon and Syria were doing the exact same thing. But during this time, there were heavy tensions arising in the area as the Persians actually were aligning more towards the Nazi Germans than anyone, as Hitler had actually been making some pretty decent concerted efforts to try and get Iran to align with the Nazi Germans, or with the Axis powers for the large part, much like the Russian Federation is doing with Iran, and much like China is doing with Iran right now. Nevertheless, the United States actually conducted a military coup along with Britain in the middle of World War II in 1943 to completely overthrow the Kingdom of Persia and to install the Shah of Iran. Well, actually, technically, we installed a different kind of government. The Shah of Iran was installed in about 1955 under Allen Dulles during Dwight D. Eisenhower's administration, but nevertheless, It's a very similar kind of a situation down here, and the same kind of tensions that are existing now existed in a different form with different groups battling out for control inside of the mandates, but once again, a very similar and fairly destabilized situation in this region at the time as what we're seeing right now. And not only that, East Asia is probably the most eerie. A larger East Asian country, which has economically sprung out of obscurity over just the past few decades, is attempting an aggressive expansion campaign to try and put itself at the center of a major economic sphere where it will be able to rival the greatest powers on Earth economically and militarily. Both the Empire of Japan and the People's Republic of China have the exact same storyline. You can literally say that for the Imperial Japanese leading up to World War II or China right now. Literally the same story. The People's Republic of China in the present day is currently conducting such aggressive actions that the United States of America has been offended and has begun a trade war for the large part. Leading up to the beginning of World War II, the United States was so offended by the aggressive Japanese actions inside of East Asia that we technically began a trade war and then a complete embargo on American oils being shipped to the Imperial Japanese because of their actions leading up to World War II, largely their aggressive campaigns of expansion. This resulted in a heavily destabilized situation inside the region of East Asia, which would lead the Imperial Japanese, considering that their economic prowess would begin to wane if the situation would not change. They decided to attack the United States forces inside the Philippines, inside of the islands of Guam and others, and to also attack the U.S. Pacific Fleet based out of Pearl Harbor in the area of Oahu in Hawaii. This is something that is pretty much paralleling exactly in East Asia, the lead up that we saw to the Second World War. It's actually pretty much the exact same thing. Unlike Russia in Europe and the Middle East, where it's similar but it's not identical, the situation happening in East Asia right now is actually entirely identical to what the United States and Japan were going through up to the lead up of World War II. Nevertheless, we have been able to hear that the United States of America may be beginning possible talks with the People's Republic of China over the trade tariffs, as the President of the United States has stated that we are talking to China and that Beijing has reached out since the 145% tariffs. We have not implemented the 245% tariffs on them yet, which would be paramount to King's ransom. So it appears that the 145% tariffs have begun to move the Chinese into the negotiating table, but once again, we really do not know what the bulk or meat of those negotiations can be. They could end up being completely pointless, and we can see that this trade war continues into almost an outright embargo if the 240% tariffs were put into place. But nevertheless, the situation going on with the People's Republic of China and the multiple other regions around the world are clearly showing that we are getting into what I would say is a pre-World War phase, and that is something that is a little bit concerning in itself. But nevertheless, Ukraine has also stated, speaking about Chinese involvement in the Middle East and Ukraine, Ukraine did state through the office of the President of Ukraine today that they have clear, undeniable evidence of China sending weapons to Russia to fight the war. And a lot of people are talking about whether they believe Zelenskyy or not. And it almost appears unanimous at this point. We very rarely have polls that turn out this way, that everyone is saying that Zelenskyy must be correct, and the Chinese are 100% involved in supporting and propping up the Russian Federation's war efforts inside of Ukraine. And so, Matthew, what are people thinking about this, and what are you thinking about it as well?
All right, so 87%, the overwhelming majority of people in the chat said yes, China is 100% involved in sending weapons to Russia to fight the war against Ukraine, while 8% said China gives a few weapons, but not 100% involved, and 1%, literally only 1% said no, China is not sending weapons. And a lot of people on this channel have actually called this accurately in the chat. People were saying before that China must be sending weapons to Russia, because otherwise, how is Russia making up for this massive manufacturing deficit that they have when it comes to weapons? And now we're learning, based on what Zelensky's telling us, that China's been sending weapons for ages now, and they're just now getting evidence of it, and they're able to prove it. And they're even manufacturing the weapons on Russian soil. These Chinese companies are. They're even manufacturing them there, which is crazy in itself. So I've also speculated for a long time that maybe North Korea is being used as a conduit for China to basically smuggle weapons into Russia. And that could actually turn out to be true, because somehow China's getting the weapons in. It could be direct flights from China, or it could be through North Korea, which is used as a conduit for sending those weapons. So the long-time hunch that many people have had actually looks like it could be turning true. So I'm definitely with the 88%. I think China is 100% involved. But Enforcer, what say you?
I would have to be with the 88% as well. I believe that the Chinese at this point are 100% involved. Matthew has largely been a massive proponent of the idea that the Chinese have been involved through an incredibly long time, using North Korea as a artificial intermediary to be able to supply the Russian Federation with Chinese munitions, but having enough culpable deniability by saying that they were actually provided by North Korea instead. I would have to say, in my opinion, I do believe that the People's Republic of China is not even doing that. I actually think that they may be providing direct military support across China's border with Russia, near to the areas of northern Manchuria, across the Amur River. I think that that may be the most likely option, as direct military support would be quickly transported in between China and Russia in such a place like this, like near the city of and the city of Blagoveshchensk. This is probably an area where a lot of that equipment is being transported from one side of the border to the next, but nevertheless, I do believe that it's quite obvious at this point that the People's Republic of China is starting to get their finger in the pie in a lot of different pies around the world, not just in Eastern Europe, but also in the Middle East as well, quite obviously today. So in my opinion, I would have to agree with all of y'all. I do believe that the Chinese are directly involved in the war in Ukraine at this point. But nevertheless, I do also want to add in something else, because I've seen a lot of people talking about the parallels leading up to World War II, and there was a great question that someone asked. They asked, well, what happened with the United States and Japan leading up to World War II? Well, interesting enough, to give a little bit of a short history lesson on that, because the embargo is something that really isn't talked about a lot these days. Really, how we explain World War II to the public in the United States is the most simplified form these days. We go, let me see here. How do we explain it? Oh yeah, Nazi Germany was invading France at this time, and also the British and the French were fighting the Germans in North Africa by 1940. Well, really late 1940 and early 1941, and on towards the later end of that year. And the United States just didn't want to be involved. We were just sipping on Coca-Colas and eating hamburgers. But for some reason, the Japanese just got angry out of the blue, and they just bombed Pearl Harbor. The reality is that there was actually a pretty decent lead up to that. And I've also got to say, this is something crazy, folks. The Chinese bots are coming in mass.
Yeah, are you seeing that, man? Yeah. I'm struggling to get rid of all of them. Like, they're flooding in here like crazy. We put the word China in the title, and all of a sudden we're being bombarded.
Dude, and they come in with the same thing. China #1, China #1. It's like, bro, China going number 9. It's about to be a dead set 0 here in a minute. But beyond that, to get back to our whole Imperial Japanese story here, Japan had been conducting a aggressive campaign of expansion throughout the entirety of East Asia. And here's where the similarities come into being, just to explain this here, why I'm saying it's pretty much identical. Let me go show y'all a map of Japan in 1905. Maybe this would be a cool one to show. So this little area in like the doo-doo brown color, I don't know why they picked that color, that is the area of land that Japan actually controlled by about 1905. So they controlled the Port Arthur area, which is no longer called Port Arthur, by the way. It's actually called Dalian, because it's controlled by the Chinese. And they also controlled the entirety of the peninsula of Korea. And that happened not that long before 1905. Now, let me move forward to a map of Japan by 1939. And so let me go right here. And so this is a map of what Japan controlled by 1939. And they controlled a large amount compared to what they controlled here. Taiwan was actually controlled by the Japanese for an incredibly long time, pretty much all the way from 1905 up until 1939. But you can also see that the Chinese had taken direct control of this area called Manchukuo, which is a puppet state that the Japanese created. So that way they technically weren't running the place, but they really were. They also took over the Inner Mongolian lands that were once controlled by the warlords, and they also took control of Peking, which is now called Beijing, all the way down to Shanghai. Around this area right here is the city of Nanking, also nowadays called Nanjing, and that's where one of the most horrendous atrocities in world history was ever conducted, at least in terms of a genocide or some sort of war crimes or crimes against humanity. Those were some of the worst. But nevertheless, as you can see, based off of the map from 1905 up until 1939, the Japanese were conducting an incredibly aggressive campaign of expansion. And much like we are seeing in the present day, there actually was a pretty decent push and pull in the United States back then for getting involved in world affairs and not getting involved in world affairs. There were a lot of people, much like us here on this channel, that believed that the United States should be out there, like Teddy Roosevelt wanted us to be, and be the world police, and pretty much just get involved in everything everywhere, and to keep it as well-maintained as possible and make sure that the right guys prevail. And then there was another group that called themselves the America First group. And the American First group had an idea that we really shouldn't be involved in outside international affairs outside the United States. That's really for the Europeans and the Asians to handle. We largely should just be involved in keeping as neutral as possible, but of course not completely cutting ourselves off from the world, just largely keeping ourselves to ourselves, but still conducting massive trade with anyone and everyone. So back then, the America First people were kind of just saying, this is not really our wheelhouse, not really our thing. We'll trade with the Japanese and the Chinese. We really don't care who or where, but we're not going to get involved in those affairs either. But nevertheless, the president at the time was kind of having to straddle the two, and the president at the time was Franklin Delano Roosevelt. And Franklin Delano Roosevelt largely was trying to strike a balance. So what we were doing is we were largely remaining isolationist, at least in terms of our interventionism, but at the same time, he was also trying to appease those more so world police kind of people, much like us. In doing so, in the latter part of 1940, we actually started to implement sanctions and tariffs against the Empire of Japan for their actions inside of East Asia. The Empire of Japan retaliated, as a matter of fact, and then later on, towards July of 1941, just about a year later, we actually froze Japanese assets inside the United States and also implemented the oil embargo against Japan. Then from July to December, the Japanese started cooking, and they cooked up, they didn't cook up sashimi, they cooked up the attack on Pearl Harbor and also the attack on the Philippines and Guam, and then conducted all of those attacks simultaneously on December 7th of 1941, which was pretty much the United States' entry into World War II. But I'm sure many of y'all can see, at least in one form or another, the parallels that exist in between the Imperial Japanese and that of the Communist Chinese in the present day. Much like the Imperial Japanese, the Communist Chinese have gone through a massive economic miracle for the large part over the past 2 decades and have risen from nothing to being the most powerful country in the world outside the United States. They are now trying to conduct their own form of sphere building and expansion, but unlike the Japanese that were trying to create the Greater East Asian Co-Prosperity Sphere, which was the actual specific technical name, the Chinese are trying to create pretty much the Greater Indian Ocean Co-Prosperity Sphere through the One Belt, One Road program. And the Chinese go about it a lot less militantly than the Japanese. The Chinese try and conduct lawfare and economic conquest, while the Japanese were more so conducting direct military conquest. Nevertheless, the results usually end up the same. Beyond that, though, the parallels are identical, and now we're seeing that the United States of America has implemented almost the exact same kind of a trade regimen against the Chinese that we did against the Japanese, and going off of that kind of a metric, we actually could be months away from war, going off of the World War II example, against the People's Republic of China, and they could end up attacking Taiwan, or they could attack larger U.S. assets, such as U.S. military bases in Okinawa, or U.S. bases on the Japanese mainland, or even U.S. bases and facilities inside of South Korea, as they attempt to try and paralyze the United States' military responsibilities in East Asia so they can conduct their attack on Taiwan. In short, this is actually getting a little bit close to being the war in the Pacific once over again, much like it was in World War II, at least with the parallels. We are negotiating with them, or at least there has been some talks that have begun, but those talks might not go anywhere, and there's a decent chance that might be the case. Nevertheless, though, loads of people have actually been talking about the parallels that I've been stating here. Matthew actually threw up, I think, an ad hoc poll that he did not plan tonight, and if so, it was a very good one. Matthew asked all of y'all, do y'all think that the U.S.-China tensions will be the trigger that repeats the start of World War II, much like the trigger that started the war in between Imperial Japan and the United States back in 1941? And it looks like people actually have varying opinions on this at the moment, and a decent amount of people are actually unsure. But Matthew, what are people thinking about this? And what are you thinking about it as well?
All right, so 44% of the audience said yes, it will be nearly identical to the start of World War II, and the trigger this time is going to be the China tensions with the United States, while 26% said no, it will be entirely different, and about 12% said we are not heading into World War III, and this is a non-issue. And I would say that while World War III is still not a certainty, we're certainly looking like we're heading pretty close to it. So if there was any time in the modern history that I would say World War III was right around the corner, it would be right now. Not trying to fearmonger, by the way. If it's going to happen, it's going to happen. And if it doesn't, then that's great. But it looks like all the indications are there, the warnings and indications that we are heading toward a world conflict of some sort, because there's so many things happening in so many different regions right now. The Middle East and Europe, also in Asia, pretty much everywhere. Even Mexico, we're having a problem down there as well. So problems everywhere. And when tensions start boiling over like this, all it takes is one big match to be thrown into that room full of gas for it to go up in a huge blaze. So the China tensions are certainly right now the most concerning of the bunch. What was previously concerning was that Russia might go in and attack the Baltics. That was the previous most pressing thing happening, in my opinion. But these new tensions with China, and also the involvement by China in the Ukraine war, and also the involvement by targeting U.S. vessels in Yemen, that is a bad, bad sign. And of course, like the enforcer said, right at the start of World War II, there was essentially a trade embargo in Asia. We're seeing the same thing right now. The parallels are uncanny how close it is. And they say that history repeats itself, and I think we're seeing it repeat itself right now, sadly. So I'm with the 45%. I think it might be nearly identical if World War III does indeed actually pop off. But enforcer, what say you?
And here comes another China bot. There's another one in the chat. It's about to get nuked. But I would have to say that it appears that it's going to be nearly identical. I work off of historical precedents primarily. I'm a history major, so looking back at history and trying to extrapolate similar examples of scenarios and then playing them out almost identically usually works incredibly well. For most of y'all who may not know, the famed analysis that we were giving back at the very beginning of the war, that was almost dead on the nail 90% of the time, was based off of historical examples of different kinds of battles, offensive campaigns, and entire wars that had happened over previous centuries of history that we were largely pulling information from and extrapolating to try and figure out what was going to be happening next in the Ukraine war, and it usually was almost always right. Going off of that, you can always pull examples from history to be able to find reoccurring patterns or trends. Of course, the saying, or more so, the best saying I think that it really emphasizes this sort of an idea in history is one made by the German statesman Otto von Bismarck, who stated that history does not repeat itself, but it often rhymes. And I would say that this is one of those kinds of instances right here where it is rhyming incredibly well with the lead up to World War II in East Asia. It is quite obvious at this point that there is a lot of tension existing in the world. The Japanese at the time, well, by the way, I forgot to mention this to folks, Japan at the time, leading up into World War II, actually was one of the largest and most powerful economies on the planet. And it was actually kind of shocking that that was the case, because only about 70 years before that, they were literally a peasant-like feudalistic era sort of a society. They were completely isolated from the world. I don't know if a lot of people know this part of Japan's history, which really makes their presence in the modern world even more impressive. Japan had completely cut itself off from the outside world for hundreds of years. They were still living in the medieval era, literally a feudalistic society model, when the U.S. rolled up under the command of President Millard Fillmore with gunboats, I believe at the city of I believe it was not Osaka. I'm trying to think of which one it was. I believe it actually was Nagasaki or Hiroshima that we rolled up into. But pretty much we told them that they can open up the trade or we're going to start blasting people. And so they decided to open up the trade. I don't know what the plan was behind that. Like, actually, we did that with the Kingdom of Joseon, which is what Korea was before it became Korea, and they just said no, and we ended up like killing I think a couple of hundred Koreans, and then we just left, and then they never opened up the trade, so a little bit weird. Also, a pilgrim said it was Yokohama, which is actually south of Tokyo these days, but nevertheless, we arrived, we told them open up the trade or we're going to start blasting people, so they decided to open up the trade because they were looking at the U.S. gunboats and they were like, wow, that's actually some pretty decent firepower right there we've never really seen. I don't think we can match that, so we better just open up the trade. So the Japanese went from, in the 1860s, being a feudalistic society. Fast forward to 1905, they were such an advanced nation industrially and economically that they went to war with the Russian Empire in 1905 and they won hands down on the land and sea. It was shocking to the world because no one expected that the Japanese, which were a backwater isolationist country only 40 years ago, to beat the Russians in 1905. It was just absolutely impossible. It blew people's minds around the world. And then it blew their minds even further when the Japanese economy continued to grow rapidly. And the Japanese actually had a very close relationship with the United States during most of this time, and something that shows how close this relationship is that the Empire of Japan actually was huge, massively into baseball before World War II or the U.S. occupation of Japan after World War II. They were already huge into it. They were so big into baseball because of their really close cultural ties with the United States and trade relationships that they had, that during World War II, we actually had the idea of putting Babe Ruth, the famous baseball player, onto a broadcasting speaker in Okinawa, and have him tell the Japanese that he's disappointed in them in Japanese, because they thought that it would be taken seriously enough that some of them might give up hearing that one of their idols in sports was saying that they weren't doing the right thing. That was actually a consideration at the time, like no joke.
It might have worked. They should have tried it.
Dude, imagine Babe Ruth at that point, man, getting on the radio. Oh, come on, pal. You're making all us Uncle Sam real unhappy. Why don't you just give on up, huh? It's like, dude, that would have been
if
crazy.
Dennis Rodman can do it, Babe Ruth could have done it too.
Dude, Babe Ruth would have come back. Honestly, I think they're just misunderstood. Something like that. But anyways, beyond that, nevertheless, very similar kinds of trends here. Just trying to point that out. Because once again, kind of like Japan at that time, China's had very close economic relations with the U.S., much like Japan did leading up to World War II. The Chinese have a decent amount of American culture in them, because of just exposure to our trade. But at the same time, they also have their own interests, and they're expanding rapidly. We're now getting in the exact same kind of trade war that we did with Japan. It's highly likely, it's actually very likely at this point, this actually could turn into the Third World War, really in the Pacific, because of this. And I think that's why we're seeing that there is an attempt at being made at negotiations by both sides, because we're now understanding what could be at stake here. But nevertheless, it is a very bizarre kind of a thing. Also, one more thing I forgot to throw in is that the Japanese were, kind of getting involved here and there before World War II really broke out in between us and them, in sending groups or trying to send some support to people who really weren't our friends. Kind of like China's doing right now with the Houthis in Russia. So a little bit interesting with that, just to top it all off. A little bit of icing on the cake there for y'all. But anyways, I hope that addresses that somewhat well, at least based off of what we would know right now. But like I'm saying, this is actually getting a little bit on closer to World War III. But another thing I have to say is I've been seeing loads of very good questions coming out of the chat tonight. Some people have also been asking, so are they just going to nuke Seattle? I don't know why they're going to nuke Seattle. First and foremost, I feel like they would nuke a couple of other places like San Francisco, San Jose, Sacramento, Los Angeles, San Diego, probably Portland as well, maybe Vancouver, Washington, also Tacoma, and Bremerton, and a whole bunch of other places. But some people have been asking, are they just going to nuke us? And the answer is no. Nuclear doctrine, both in the United States and China, is defensive entirely and does not allow for offensive, I guess you could say, a surprise attack, nuclear bombings of their adversaries and enemies. This kind of a war would be conventional for the longest period of time. It only would turn nuclear once one side was starting to clearly lose a conflict, and then it would start to become nuclear. But there are always escalatory steps. Don't think of it as like your methed out neighbor in the trailer park that's going to run out and smack you to death with a crowbar, just because you looked at them the wrong way. We're not dealing with those kind of people, and countries don't really work on that kind of a basis. Countries, much like any sort of legal authority, even if they're a dictatorship like China, they always try and work off of escalatory steps, because they don't want to be able to try and miss an opportunity to pretty much chicken out if they can. And if they start nuking the United States immediately, they miss all their opportunities to chicken out, and they go straight on to the big boy kind of stuff. So if the Chinese started to lose this war badly, or if the U.S. started to lose this war badly, we would see tactical nuclear weapons usage most likely in the oceans around China, and then we would most likely see that after that occurred for a while, it finally would get on into a full-on strategic exchange where China fires most of their strategic intercontinental ballistic missiles at us, and we fire most of ours at them. That would most likely be how that would happen, because nobody wants to die, and if you go straight to using massive strategic nuclear weapons on each other, your chances of dying become a lot higher. So
I think it's what a lot of people misunderstand. I also agree with you. It would not start off with a nuclear exchange. That would not happen under pretty much any circumstance, because whichever country pulls the trigger and launches a nuclear weapon, they've essentially said, we're just going to go ahead and end the thing right now, because that's going to result in a counterstrike immediately by whoever has the nuclear missile launched in their country, and it's going to end up in an all-out mutually assured destruction situation. So every country knows that. Nobody wants to test that theory in action and actually see it happen in real life. So it would be conventional, like you're saying. It would not be an immediate destruction of everybody. And even if one country started to lose, in my mind, it's still a question of whether or not the army or the people in charge would say, okay, before we destroy the entire world and we start nuking people just because we're about to lose, maybe we should consider letting cooler heads prevail, because the nukes are still a thing that could go down. So I think the nukes, even though they're in the arsenal and a madman could use them, they're going to be a last resort. Now, that does not take off the table that Russia might try to use a tactical nuke in the Ukraine war, because Ukraine doesn't have nuclear weapons. But when countries like China and the United States are brawling with one another, they both have nukes and they have huge arsenals. So they don't want to risk it.
And also, that's another thing that we have to point out as well, just kind of like a logical extension of that, is that in the Cold War, many people will know that armies were kept at a constant state of readiness, pretty much at a fully mobilized size the entire time, both on the Soviet side and the NATO side. With that in mind, why would they do that if they were all going to just nuke each other immediately? There wouldn't even be the point in maintaining a massive army, because you would never use them. You would just start nuking people immediately. So it kind of, once again, defeats that argument, because it is illogical. There would be a major conventional war before a nuclear weapon was used. And a nuclear weapon would only be used if one side was losing badly compared to the other. And then they would take the risk of just, lobbing a nuke at someone and then praying that might end up doing them a little bit better. But once again, everyone understands that. And another thing that I have to point out is that there is really no such thing in reality as the leaders of countries that get involved in nuclear wars surviving. I know a lot of people think that they'll magically survive, like it's Fallout 4, they'll go to some kind of a casino and live in a casino for the rest of their lives in the pod or something, like Fallout New Vegas or something along those lines. But that's not going to happen. The reality is that once nukes start flying, the Chinese and the U.S. have pretty much pinpointed everywhere that one of those leaders could be, and they're going to be dropping a direct ground impact nuclear weapon onto that specific site to make sure to get each other. So pretty much in this kind of an instance, the President of the United States and the Premier of China would get killed in a nuclear exchange. It's a guarantee at that point. There's really no way for them to survive, and if they do, they're going to be incredibly lucky. So that also incentivizes everyone to go, let's try and negotiate, because they're not going to be just indifferently getting their whole country killed. They're also going to be getting themselves killed. To explain why that is the case, just in case some people are like, how do you know that? That sounds like bogus. Well, the reason why we know that would be the case is because for the executive branch in the White House, the plan is that if a nuclear war is coming, they're going to spread out 3 different offices, an A group, a B group, and a C group, so that way when the president gets killed, because it's highly likely in a nuclear exchange that he would be killed, along with most of the original executive staff, the A headquarters would pretty much take over the operations of the office of the president. If the A group was taken out, the B group would then take over the operations of the president. If the B group was knocked out, the C group then takes over the operations of the president and the executive branch as a whole, to make sure that there's some form of continuance of government. That's how it would work. That's how it also works largely in China as well, and that's also why there's always a designated survivor, because why would they need that if it was guaranteed that somehow they were all going to, if the president was miraculously going to survive? Why even need a designated survivor? Because there would be no purpose for it. They're pretty much untouchable, at least according to this kind of logic, and once again, that logic is flawed. The leaders of these countries are honestly at far more risk in a nuclear exchange of getting killed than your average citizen, which is really the reality of it. But anyways, with that, I hope that does address it the best I can, at least from how I understand the situation going and how things work, at least from how we know and how they've set up the redundancies and the backups. But nevertheless, we are going to be moving on into a little question segment here for just a moment. And I got to say, a massive amount of people are here tonight. We have 8.2 thousand people here nearly tonight. And I got to thank you all massively for watching. And y'all are watching the very day that we passed 345,000 subscribers, which is
yes, sir.
one hell of a
That's
number.
what I'm talking about.
Man, that's what I'm talking about, baby. But nevertheless, a huge thanks to all of y'all so much for watching so far. I hope y'all have been enjoying tonight. I hope the analysis has been good. But before we move on to this next segment where we talk about everything not China, we talk about the Middle East and Russia and the Ukraine war, pretty much as their own independent instances going on today, I want to make sure that we get just a couple of questions so we can have a little bit of a news breather to get ready for that second segment. So what do we got, Matthew?
All right, so we've had some very, very generous support tonight in the super chats, and starting with our first one, this one goes to Peace with War, who's a channel legend, of course, and puts in a very generous $100 donation, which marks the largest super chat of the night. And thank you very much, Peace with War, for supporting the channel and helping it keep on running, even through this day 1149, I think. But thank you very much for that. And they said, how much more escalation will it take for the U.S. to stop trying to achieve peace through diplomacy? It just seems to not be working.
Thank you for the massive support, Peace with War, and I got to thank you massively for helping this channel to keep on running. That is massive support and helps us to be able to keep the lights on here at Enforcer HQ and to be able to keep this channel running. And oh, by the way, while we're here right now at this very moment, I do want to take a moment, since I remembered, to make sure to bring this up to y'all. And let me go get this. 1 second, folks. I want to get this really quickly. And let me make sure that it's lining up properly. And no, it's not. No, it's not. Let's see here. Let me go do this instead. So here we go. So this month, coming here very soon, because this is the 17th of April right now, coming very soon, we are not going to be running streams for several days. I know many people are crying about that, and many people are sad, and I would agree, y'all have a reason to cry and be sad about that. But we will be gone on the following days. The 19th of April, which is Saturday, we will not be running a stream. The 20th of April, Sunday, we will not be running a stream. We, of course, will not be running a stream on the 21st of April because we always take Mondays off, and we also will not be running a stream on the 22nd of April. We most likely will not be putting out videos during that time either, but if anything incredibly massive happens, for example, Xi Jinping drops dead, we will be putting out a video if that does happen. So y'all can count on that, but I want to explain why we're doing this. We are going on a massive gallivanting adventure around the United States of America because here in a couple of months' time, the Enforcer HQ 2.0 is going to expire, and we will have to find a new place for Enforcer HQ to be. And so for this reason, we're having to take a couple of days off to travel around the United States and to try and figure out where the Enforcer headquarters is going to be. There are currently 3 options: Seattle, Dallas, or the greater Miami area. We're trying to figure out which one of them it will be, and right now we're having to travel to try and figure out which one that is. So if you are wondering where is the streams during the 19th, 20th, 21st, and 22nd, they are not going to be running because we are not going to be here in the studio to be able to run the show. So I hope we made sure to get that out of the way, but we will be streaming tomorrow. This begins on the 19th and ends on the 22nd. That means that the 18th, which is one less than 19, we will be running a stream tomorrow. So if you want to see the stream tomorrow, it will be running. So do not fret. There will be one more stream before we take off again. But nevertheless, I hope that was able to address that well. And now to answer your question, Peace with War, now that I got that out of the way when I remembered it as we had the largest amount of viewership here possible, how much more escalation will it take for the U.S. to stop trying to achieve peace? I'm not entirely sure. The current U.S. administration is heavily focused on attempting to negotiate settlements and endings to the war in Ukraine and also the situation in the Middle East and with China, and I'm not entirely sure. In my honest opinion, I would say that negotiations with Iran are completely pointless, and I'd also say the Russian Federation has operated in such bad faith in their attempted negotiations with them that we really should not try and continue any further negotiations with the Russians. But nevertheless, while I'm not really a big fan of continuing negotiations, I can see where they're coming from, as in they're trying to find the best way out. But sometimes the best way out is just pushing forwards, even if it's going to be rather difficult. So that would be my best answer, although I would say that I think that we need to be taking aggressive action against Iran effective immediately, and we also need to just continue to back up Ukraine and support them in the conflict so that way they can eventually drive the Russians into such a bad condition that they are forced to negotiate on actually amicable terms. But with the People's Republic of China, I actually would say that based off of how aggressively we've handled that situation right now, I actually do think that we need to get in negotiations with them, even with the stupidity that's been uncovered inside of Western Yemen and also inside of Ukraine. We might want to conduct negotiations with them, because if that starts to devolve into a major world war in the Pacific, I don't really think that would be a good situation right now, or really at any point in the future. We want to try and avoid that the best we can. If it's unavoidable, then it's unavoidable, and we'll have to deal with it. But I think the negotiations with the Chinese really aren't that bad of a thing right now, so we'll have to see. But nevertheless, I do thank you for the massive support and helping this channel to keep on running Peace with War, because if it wasn't for folks like you, with that massive support, the hugest support of the night right now, mind you, we would not be able to make this thing a reality and keep it running. And so a huge thank you to you once again. And it is time for us to move on to the next one.
All right, our second super chat is going to go to none other than Jenna, last name Tolls, who puts in a $50 donation. And thank you very much, Jenna, for that support. And also, thank you for the launch offer as well. Sadly, we're not coming through that part of the United States, but if we were, we would take you up on it. But thank you very much for that offer. And Jenna said, sorry for the bots coming in. Think about those little China Square protests. You know, those ones in the square, if you know what I mean. That starts with a T.
Oh, those 10 men squares. They have a lot of men made of 10 in those squares. But beyond that, I do thank you for the support and helping this channel to keep on running, Jenna, last name Tolls. And it's perfectly fine with the Chinese bots. We always have a new round of bots coming through all the time. Tonight, it's China, which is honestly funny, because they all come in and do the same thing. China number one, China flag, China flag, China flag. China number one, China flag, China flag, China flag. Temu, TikTok, Red Book, or Red Note, I mean. And, it's like the same thing over and over. But honestly, I've been getting a kick out of them because the Chinese bots really don't have like a grasp on it like the Russian bots do. The Russian bots will come in and they'll say something like, the Ukrainians are less than people and we will destroy them and we will destroy the wicked Americans. And it's like, okay, that actually was like rhetoric. The Chinese bots literally just come in and they're like, China number one. And it's like, that's it. Like, that's honestly kind of like weak. But beyond that, I do thank you so much for the support and helping this channel to keep on running. Because if it wasn't for folks like you, we wouldn't be able to keep this channel running. And we wouldn't be able to keep it running to the point that we get to cover news that brings in China bots. Who would have ever thought that? But still, a huge thanks to you so much once again. I hope that does address that incredibly well, at least the best I can. And we got to thank you so much for being a channel legend and continuing to support this channel day in and day out. And so with that, we are on to the final question of this segment, and then we're going to be moving on into the remainder of the news.
Also, by the way, to compensate everybody for us being off air for a few days, because this time we're both going. It's not just the enforcer. So sadly, I can't stay back at HQ and make the short war videos while he's gone because we're both going on this one. Because we have to both figure out where the hell we're going, man. We can't just one of us can't just figure it out on its own. We got to both figure out where we're going. Enforcer HQ is a dual place to live, so it has to work for both. I'm going to try to film as much as the trip as possible. Honestly, the trip is honestly less vacation, I would say. It's more of like actual legwork and figuring where we're trying to move to. So I'm going to try to film as much as possible that in the time that we have. It's very limited time, sadly, that we have in each place, but I will film it as much as I can and maybe make a little video for either Patreon or maybe a side video for maybe my personal channel or maybe on this channel possibly, but probably most likely on the side channel. But anyways, moving on to our last one here before we get back to the news. This one goes to Eric Hutchins, who puts in a $50 donation. And huge thanks to you, Eric, for that $50 support and also helping to keep the channel running. And Eric says, coffee for your travel to a better location. Thanks for your excellent coverage and LSA.
And thank you so much for the massive amount of support, Eric Hutchins, all the way from Canada. I got to thank you for the massive support, and I got to thank you for wishing us the best on our travels and letting us get a little bit of a coffee break on that travels as well. We will be flying many thousands of miles over this trip because I quite literally mean it's across the country from end to end. So we will be probably needing a good bit of coffee, especially with how early sometimes we have to get up and sometimes, get on these planes to fly around. But I do thank you so much for the massive support all the way up there in Canada, and I thank you for the kind words as well and saying that we do excellent coverage. We try our best to make sure that our coverage is most as factual and as researched as it possibly can be. One thing that's always been interesting to me is that it does reflect in the amount of people who come here to watch the news, and tonight's actually been a pretty decent night, all things considered. And I got to thank everyone so much for enjoying our channel and enjoying our news coverage. We put a lot of work and effort into it, and what's crazy, you know something that's been crazy, folks? I was actually watching something about a talk show host, and it was very interesting to me, Matthew, because they were talking about how high the stakes were, because 5 days a week, this guy had to get out, man, and he had to go and come up with some funny content. He had to keep on top of the trends that were going on out there in the world, and he had to be able to put up something that was presentable for 5 days a week. And only for an hour segment. Oh, I'm not going to say the name of this person, Matthew. He's fallen on hard times. But beyond that, I think you may have gotten it there. Maybe, perhaps, maybe.
Maybe. I guess you're talking about like travel bloggers in general. They got to keep like they got crazy overhead. They got to pay for all these flights and stuff like that to try to make the
No,
money
no.
back through the AdSense.
I'm talking about Jimmy Fallon from The Tonight Show.
Oh, man, I don't know anything about Jimmy Fallon, man. I'll be honest with you. I didn't catch that at all.
Well, I was watching something about him, man, and they were talking about, oh, the stress was unbearable for him, on the talk show. It still is, because 5 days a week he has to come up with an hour's worth of content with his writers and his whole staff. He's got a whole staff. He's got to come up with all this content for 1 hour, so that way he can be on air and he can do good. And I was like, man, and they were talking about how that got him so stressed out he became like an alcoholic and like, a drug addict and stuff behind the scenes. And I was like, man, we do that like 6 days a week, but for like 3.5 hour long shows. And we don't really even bat an eye. Like actually,
well,
like,
we do gripe, honestly. Like we gripe about the sleep deprivation.
we do gripe a little bit, but I'm not like tanking back a whole bottle of Henny over it, or anything. Like, we're keeping a pretty level head through this whole thing. But honestly, I never thought about that until I heard someone else talking about that, and they were like, they had to be in the office every day. I'm like, what? I'm like, come on, like, and they were like saying that for like 5 days a week. We're doing this like 6 days a week, sometimes 7 days a week. And I was like, no way. I was like, if that's stressful, man, we have to have an extremely stressful job. Like that was something wild to me. But I do thank you so much for enjoying your excellent coverage. I never really put it into mind what we do until I hear something else like that, and I'm like, wait a minute, that's not that hard. That's not that difficult. Because we do it and we do it fine. Honestly, like, it gets stressful sometimes, sure, but not extremely stressful. But beyond that, I do thank you so much for the support, Eric Hutchins, and help with this channel to keep it running and throwing in some kind words, because it does mean a lot, and it does help us to keep this thing running. And also, I see some people saying that. Oh, go ahead.
I was also going to say, by the way, some people were asking, Matt, you have a side channel? Where's it at? I don't really have like a dedicated actual side channel. What I'm calling my side channel is actually the handle I'm using to chat right here in the chat. So it's the Enforcer Matt channel. I think I have one video over there. Let me go look real quick. I think, yeah, I have my Honey Badger pistol review over there. So that's the only video I've got on that channel. So I might add the travel video to it, because I really don't have content dedicated on that channel. And it'll probably just be for the, the fans that want to go watch that video, because it's probably not going to get a whole bunch of views. But at least y'all can see what we were up to as a sort of thank you for biding the time over the time we've been gone, because it'll be like a 4 days without streaming. So that'll hopefully pay back for the time we've missed.
Yeah, that hopefully it will. Hopefully it will. Also, I saw someone say something. I'll let y'all know the reality of how everything works, because some off-grid Scott said, you guys don't live in a commercially driven environment. Actually, we kind of do, because Jimmy, like those kinds of talk shows are tough, and there is a decent amount of pressure. But the thing is that they actually get paid a great deal of money to do it. And no matter how we try and split the hair on this channel, we can get viewership comparable to theirs, and we would make about a quarter of what they make, just because we monetize our stuff as little as possible. So that is something that kind of comes into the factor, is that maybe it's not commercially driven, and maybe we don't have an executive over their head, but I'm the executive for the large part, and I have to be the one to make sure that this thing keeps going. And if we miss a day, like for the next 4 days here, if we're not on air, there's no paid time off, there's no paid vacations, we just don't make money. And so we have to constantly be working, because if we stop working at any given moment for longer than a couple of weeks, there's a pretty good chance that we might not be able to pay rent. So we're not just dealing with a commercially driven environment and maybe a pushy executive. We have homelessness over our heads if we don't make this thing work. So that's kind of the reality of our situation. So when you look at it like that, probably a little bit more stressful than Jimmy Fallon's thing, because I mean, he could get axed off the Tonight Show and he's got enough money just to live out the rest of his life in retirement. But we get bumped off this show, we're probably going homeless, or we're having to scramble to find a new job. So that's kind of something, I guess, that you could put out there that would make it a lot more stressful for us than him. But it depends on how you split the hairs and how you look at them. But anyways, with that, I do thank you for the support and help with this channel to keep it running. I hope that does address that well. And with that, it is time for us to move on into the remainder of the news that we have tonight. And we have been able to hear that the United States of America and its armed forces have been able to conduct a successful strike on the Ras Isa port. The Ras Isa port is not in Al Hodeida. I actually thought it was earlier today. It isn't. It's actually up here. And it's these little oil tanks in the middle of the sand. Like, there's nothing out here. There's, like, no port infrastructure or anything. And they just pull up tankers alongside this thing and just pump the stuff on. I don't really know how it works, honestly. This is actually kind of a little jank. This is what they would call real hood type shit in America. But over in the Houthi-controlled territories of Yemen, this is called high-standing infrastructure. Nevertheless, we bombed it, and it appears that it's been completely destroyed. So here's the clip. Oh!
Oh, man.
That thing looking a little toasty. And that's the end of the clip right there. And moving on from that, and on to our next clip, our second clip of the massive strike, we were able to see it once again. It was a duplicate. And that's the end.
That's a tough fire right there, honestly, man. That's a big one right there.
That is actually a pretty big one. It looks like every single one of the silos on the beach was hit and was on fire. Also, there's a sugar refining company right here, right there. And also there's a coal storage that's surrounded by shrubbery. That's honestly really confusing. Like, this is the middle of the desert. And also they have the Occupational Health and Safety Department. So while they're terrorists, they still have OSHA, which is a little bit interesting to me. I didn't think the terrorists would have OSHA. But they also... I don't know what the other ones are. They're in Arabic, and unfortunately I can't read Arabic. But what an interest...
Say what?
There's a shopping mall here.
I thought this was a Topgolf for a minute when you clicked on it. I was like, I saw a fence and green grass. I was like, Topgolf? I'm like, no way.
Fish store.
Look, it's good.
5
Honestly,
stars. Good. Man, they keep it simple around here. What's the hotel look like in this town anyways? Oh, look, they took a picture of one of the ships that they took hostage.
Bro, what the, bro?
GTA cutscene.
Is that the guy who is in charge of the vessel, or who is that, bro?
I am the captain now. Hey, look! Oh my God, they're literally taking the ships hostage from this hotel. No way. No way.
This kind gentleman here with his nice model of a rifle. Look at that.
Dude, look at this. And then they're on the ship, and then they're taking pictures on board the vessel. You know, doing their thing. They're having a fun time.
These look like such kind gentlemen. The type of gentleman that would shake your hand and, you know, treat you right.
Uh-oh, somebody get this guy into a sitcom now. Oh, look at this silly little goose. Also, let's see here. We got this guy.
Bro, looks like he got stung by a bee in the lip.
You know what he got stung by? The U.S. Navy. And they have hornets, so they sting. They actually do. But beyond that, what an interesting hotel, and what an interesting find out here in the middle of the Yemeni desert at the southern end of the Arabian Peninsula. Look at that old Yemeni ports or something like that. But anyways, still nice to see they were able to hit the significant oil depot. Meanwhile, we were able to hear that the U.S. forces are now beginning their withdrawal from northeastern Syria, as hundreds of troops are now beginning to be removed from the area as of today. We have also been able to hear that the United States of America has supplied more support to the Israelis, as 9 U.S. transport planes carrying hundreds of bunker-busting bombs arrived in Israel in the past 24 hours, per Khan News. Shipments allow Israel and the U.S. to attack Iran's nuclear facilities in the event the negotiations fail, according to the reports. Sounds to me like the United States is really starting to prep the Israelis. And while the Israelis are being prepped, we now heard from a very nice leak that the Israelis are preparing for an independent strike in Iran. According to N12 News, citing unspecified foreign reports, Israel can launch an effective assault on Iran's nuclear programs even without U.S. support. The Israelis later clarified today that that leak was real and it was actually incredibly damaging to them because they were actually planning on doing this, but now they got to redraw all the plans. Nevertheless, it does appear that the Israelis are preparing to conduct a strike against Iran no matter what. Even if the United States makes a nuclear agreement with Iran, the Israelis are going to come through and they're going to sweep the floor against them. So we will see how that goes. And in the meantime, the Iranians have also come up finally with their own version or proposition of a nuclear deal. But before we get into that, I do want to talk about that little Israeli independent strike that they might conduct on Iran here in the future, as reports say that the Israelis are preparing for independent strikes on Iran, and that is currently underway. And a lot of people are wondering, would Israel disobey the United States' will in the area? And it looks like a lot of people are saying that yes, Israel would, and they pull that trigger. And some people are saying it's a 50-50 chance. A very small group of people are saying that Israel will obey U.S. wishes, and a very, very small group, maybe like 5 people, are unsure and undecided. But Matthew, what are people thinking about this, and what are you thinking about this as well?
All right. So the big burning question, would Israel actually disobey the U.S.'s wishes and attack Iran against their will? So that is a very big question right there, a very contentious question. And about 70% said, yes, Israel would pull the trigger if they do go through with this independent strike. They would actually do it and disobey the United States wishes, while 17% said it's a 50-50 chance, and 8% said no, Israel will 100% obey U.S. wishes. And one thing that Israel is a little bit different than Ukraine is very reliant upon Western weapons to make sure they can fight their war, because their war requires a lot of weapons. They run through a lot of ammunition all the time, and they need constant replenishment. On the other hand, Israel has a well-established defense industry. While they do rely on supplies and parts from the United States for some of these variants of the F-35 and other aircraft, I think, generally speaking, if they decided to disobey the United States, they could generally still function just fine. They would be, of course, somewhat crippled if the USA tried to retaliate by cutting off some supplies. But I have a very strong suspicion that Israel knows the U.S. will probably never cut them off, even if they disobeyed U.S. will. I doubt they would cut Israel off from any of their weapons or supplies. So I think Israel might say, we got to go in and deal with this. We're not going to wait around and just stall for time while the Iranians drag their feet. And we're going to go in there and deal with the situation right now. And it's from the sounds of it, they are preparing that as we speak. So it's not myth. It's actually happening. Preparations are happening for that to possibly take place. So, Enforcer, what say you?
The Americans are trying to make a nuclear deal while Israel is about to bomb them, and it is not what you think. And I would have to say it is not what you think. I actually do think that the Israelis actually can pull the trigger, and there really isn't much that the United States would do in response. Pretty much I would agree with exactly everything Matthew said. There wasn't really much I could add on to that, but it does appear that the Israelis are in a very comfortable position to the degree that they could really do whatever, and the United States would most likely continue to support them well on into the future. And they better hope so, because that Iranian nuclear proposition today came out, and it was not sounding good. This is what the Iranians have issued as a proposition, according to the Iran International Report. Diplomatic sources say Iran proposed a 3-phase plan to the United States during talks last Saturday. Phase 1. Iran gains access to frozen funds, and sanctions against Iran oil exports are lifted. Iran will induce the enrichment level to 3.67% for a set period. So, phase 1 of the plan is all of the repercussions against them are gone. And once they see that all the repercussions are gone and meet their demands, then we move on to phase 2. And then phase 2 is as follows. The U.S. convenes the E3, which is Germany, France, and the UK, to not trigger snapback sanctions, and other U.S. sanctions are lifted. Iran will fully halt high-level uranium enrichment and allow IAEA inspectors to return to normal. So phase 1 and phase 2 are just giving the Iranians everything they want. And then finally, phase 3, the U.S. must lift both primary and secondary sanctions against Iran and pass a comprehensive nuclear deal in Congress. In exchange, Iran will transfer its enriched uranium to a separate country. This is one of the most insane deals I've ever seen, because it's literally like, phase 1, you give us almost everything we want. Phase 2, you give us everything else that you haven't given us yet that we want. Phase 3, we get even more than we need. And also, by the way, finally, if ever all of these conditions are met, we might give away our bomb-grade uranium to someone else. This is an absolutely insane plan, man, honestly. Like, I don't think anyone's going to agree to this one. This is just ludicrous.
And who came up with this? Iran proposed it, or the U.S. proposed it?
The Iranians proposed this to the United States.
You know, it sounds eerily similar to what Russia wants as well. The first step is we need access to that money again. Like, lift the sanctions, let us have banking access. It's like, I think the USA sees this, by the way. I'm not even going to try to jump on the U.S. officials this time. They know what's up with this. I don't think they're going to let Iran have access to frozen funds. We haven't even let Russia do that. And we're allegedly on, talking terms with Russia right now. We haven't even let them do that. So this is an obvious attempt to play us by Iran. Like, man, the signs are so obvious right now that Iran is trying to play us. I think a child could see it. And I think the U.S. officials see it too, but they're trying to go through this like goodwill, like kind of like blind faith, optimism or whatever to try to make it seem like the attempted peace. But a child could see through this. It's obvious.
Ben, I got to tell you, man, it's absolutely hilarious. Literally, phase 1, give us that money. Phase 2, give us that money. Phase 3, give us that money. Also, finally, we might do something, but that's only dependent on everything else. It's like, this is the worst deal I've ever seen. This is the worst deal in the history of trade deals. Absolutely ludicrous one. I don't think the U.S. will ever agree to that one. But moving on from that, it's now finally high time for us to move on into the situation in Ukraine. The war in Ukraine, as they call it. And I gotta say, it is one hell of a war, and the Ukrainians seem to be winning this thing right now. As we have been able to hear, at least in the periphery surrounding Ukraine, that there are some larger troop deployments happening in Estonia right now, as Allied forces arriving in #Estonia by air, land, and sea are in the coming weeks to boost the readiness exercise of SIL 2025, led by Katsavagi, over 16,000 troops, including major deployments from the British 4th Brigade and other French Army units. Take a look at that picture. What a cool little convoy.
Oh, I love to see it. I hope it stays like this in an exercise way. I would hate to see this moving around in an actual war situation. So hopefully it stays kind of like a drill, that would be great.
Yeah, hopefully it stays like a kind of like a drill kind of a thing, you know what I mean? But moving on from that, we also did get to see, in the meantime, that the Ukrainians continue to attack Shoya, which is the home of the 112th Missile Brigade of the Russian Armed Forces, which we can see right here. Oh.
Oh, wow.
And the birds they sing.
Those $5 Temu Russian alarms going off like hell.
Here comes the slide whistle. There it is.
Oh, yes. Good one. Good one, sir. It sounds like those house burglar alarms, like they go off from megaphones and stuff like that when somebody breaks into like a house with an alarm system on it. It sounds just like it.
Yeah, they kind of do sound like that, yeah. Oh, we can see another little impact out there. And we can see there that they were geolocating where that was, and it looks like my geolocations yesterday were dead on the nail. I didn't say this on air yesterday, but my geolocations were done by raw instinct, and it looks like I got it absolutely spot on because it was this facility that was getting hit yesterday by the Ukrainians. So very nice that I got that correct. I was honestly just getting that correct by sheer luck and principle. But moving on from that and out of that little bit of news, we also were able to see some Russians having a homecoming near Ufa. Take a look at this.
Вот груз 200 привезли. Вон стоят. Вот стоят. Это все пацаны.
Cargo, man, it looks like freaking
Вот полная
caskets
машина.
or something.
Well, yeah, it is caskets, Matthew. This is the homecoming. They're home.
Oh,
Yeah.
a full car.
Там дальше машины стоят.
I guess you could say that there's so many of them, they'll have to buy that car. Dun, 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 dun.
А?
Jeez.
Мы
Quite a lot of
едят их.
And you know what's even worse?
What?
All
What's
this
worse?
could have been avoided if they would have simply gone back to their home country. All this would have been avoided. If Madman Putin would have said, I went in a little too deep. I shouldn't have invaded a foreign country. I'm an idiot. Let me take these troops back, and I won't let the young men die in huge droves like this. But nope. He said, nope, let's send more and put more out there.
And the meat grinder be grinding that meat. Well, that's the end
It's
of that
really
clip.
sad. I'm not gonna lie. Like it's honestly sad. Like I know it's the Russians and stuff. I know they're the enemy in the war, but it's just like like I've said for ages on this channel. Like every time I get a chance, these are sort of naive young people that really don't know what's going on. They're being told to go here by the madman Putin, and it's just sad to see because these people are as helpless in reality as pretty much everybody else in Russia. There are people in the mix that want to get in there and actually go hurt Ukrainians because they have that that devilish spirit in them. But a lot of these people are just people that were scrounged up and told go kill, and they simply said yep, or otherwise they're going to get shot by the commander.
Yeah, it's a little bit of an interesting thing, a sad thing. But once again, it is war, and it just unfortunately happens, but is a reality of it. But moving on from that and up into the Bryansk area, we also did get to see some Ukrainian strikes happening on Russian checkpoints near to the area of the border, which we were able to see in this clip right here, as the Ukrainians dropped a couple of more hammers onto those Russians. And we see the smoke rising from the checkpoint. I guess we could say that the Ukrainians will put a check on that point because they hit it dead on the nail. And that's seeing the clip right there. But moving on from that and on further down the line and into the area of Belgorod, we were able to hear that the Ukrainians took some more ground around the area of Demidovka inside of Belgorod. That sounds like Dale Dimmadome, owner of the Dimsdale Dimmadome. But they were able to take the tree lines surrounding the town of Demidovka, and it appears that they are continuing to advance little by little, day by day. Moving on from that and on to our next bit of news, a little bit further on down and inside of our location unknowns, we were able to see Russians using donkey. This is a fairly common thing these days, and we can see a donkey right here. There it is. They use a donkey. But moving on from that and on to the next clip, we also got to see a Ukrainian Humvee in operation. Take a gander at this. Humvee.
Oh, I like that. I like that a lot. That's very nice.
They're very cool. These actually were provided around 2018 to the state of Ukraine, and I don't really think a large number of them have been provided since then. So these tow Humvees have actually been in service for an incredibly long time in the Ukrainian armed forces and still find themselves at home to this present day. Meanwhile, we also get to hear of the mobile air defense groups, or at least a picture of them, and we got to see their full complement of manpower that they had in the mobile air defense group. Take a look at this. 2 Stingers and 3 riflemen. Honestly, not a bad little loadout right here. We can see them also standing in front of a Kazakh armored car, I believe that is. We can also see them manning that 50 BMG, and that thing be looking nice. We can also see this fellow with a Stinger here. We can also see this guy aiming a Purin right there. We can also see this guy holding a... unfortunately, CZ Bren, I believe, with 2 machine guns by his sides. Those look like FN Minimes, possibly. And also 2 Kazakh armored cars behind him with 50 BMGs. We also get to see this guy right here, once again holding another manpad. Looks like it might be a Purn, as he's standing on the side of an ATV. And finally, last but not least, we get to see another guy, once again, with another Purn and a CZ Bren, too. Overall, pretty interesting pictures, and nice to see the air defense units at work. We also got to see a little segment of Rodniks, and everybody loves a nice little Rodnik. And here it is.
God, what the hell? What is the Russian desire to go spray paint like these hubcaps, like, you know, these like basic like manufactured hubcaps? I'll go spray paint them with some crap on it.
It is about pimping my red. Do you not understand? Bleed.
Yeah, they're really pimping this one out right here. It needs better conditions, I'm telling you.
Yeah, I'd say so. And this one's also pretty rough as well.
Wait a minute, what is that? Is that bulletproof glass like pieces in front?
I don't know what that is, honestly. Like, it might not even be bulletproof glass.
it's like lenses for glasses on the front of this like windshield.
Dude, they're using them bifocals, man. They're able to see far up and far away up here in this UAZ. But this thing is terrible looking, dude. And they also put like the sarin wrap over the open windows on the sides. Man, really giving me those North Birmingham vibes here with this one.
Man, I'll tell you what, wrap those Russians up like leftovers. I'll tell you what. Well, I won't go there.
Oh, he won't go there. He's modest. No. He's modest. But we also got the Russian casualty report for the day. And, 3 Bobcats.
Oh, look at that. 3 Bobcats. I was told by Miss Disa that there was 3 Bobcats. Secured 3 for me today. I must say, fine procurement. I love the 3. And they're now crossing the 3807 mark, which is fantastic. But tell us more.
And Miss DC, keeper of the records, was able to give us some very interesting kinds of records here today, or at least a summary of them. 170 supply trucks and fuel tanks is the 7th highest daily loss, tied with January 7th of 2025. 65 artillery systems is tied as the 17th highest, and 54 APCs, or armored fighting vehicles, is tied as the 14th highest loss of the war. And the losses were actually pretty good today in most categories. 1,230 Russian soldiers were wounded and killed over the past 24 hours of the war, along with 54 armored personnel carriers, 170 supply trucks, 16 main battle tanks, 65 artillery pieces, 88 drones, 2 MLRSs, 3 anti-aircraft warfare systems, and 3 Bobcat skid steers. All in all, it was a pretty good day, and it was good to see that the Ukrainian armed forces were able to continue to inflict a decently high loss onto the Russian Federation's armed forces today. This is also coming At the exact same time, the state of Ukraine is now saying that they want to buy more Patriots. As Zelensky has stated, we're ready to buy at least 10 Patriot systems. I told the president this during our call. He said America will work on it. I have no other info. But they are trying to procure about 10 Patriot systems for their air defense here within the future. But moving on from that and on towards our front lines, we've actually had a lot of interesting news from the front lines today. But before we get into that, U.S. officials said that Ukraine will sign a minerals deal very soon. And is U.S. support contingent on the deal? And it seems like many people have had many different ideas, but there seems to be a majority prevailing idea at this point. And Matthew, what are people thinking about this, and what are you thinking about it as well?
All right. So the minerals deal, the very haunting minerals deal that keeps to pop up like a bad old ex or something like that. It keeps popping up, and I don't like to hear about it anymore. I'll be honest with you. It's kind of haunting me as bad as it's haunting Zelensky. So they say that once again, it's going to be signed very soon. That old phrase, the good old-fashioned phrase, we used to use this word a lot, very soon. And is U.S. support contingent on the deal? That's the big question. 55% said yes, it's essentially a requirement to sign the deal to get more support to Ukraine, while 18% said no, support will continue anyway, and 16% said support will end regardless. And support is still flowing, by the way, so support has never ended, so I don't think the support is going to end under any circumstance. It may get reduced because, of course, Zelensky is requesting to buy Patriot missiles, and the U.S. turned him down, which is not good. But I think once the minerals deal is signed, I think everything will be probably good to go. It's not going to be smooth sailing, though. Make no mistake about it. It's still going to be rough patches pretty much all the time. But generally speaking, I think the minerals deal is the contingency to send more stuff to Ukraine. But Ukraine will have to probably buy it. And even at that, it's going to be a rough patch. So it's just the state of affairs. And if Ukraine can make it work, I say good on them. But Enforcer, what say you?
I'd have to say that it may essentially be a requirement for further support. Sorry, folks. Don't know what's got me coughing here. But maybe a requirement for further support into the future. So I think the Ukrainians are kind of going to be forced one way or another to have to sign the deal. At least that would be my opinion so far. But moving on from that, and out of that little poll right there, and on up into the Vovchansk area, we were able to see some Russian forces getting hit in this area. So far, Pokrovsk has been a fairly stable front with not a lot of action. But we were able to see the Ukrainians were able to use their MT-12 Rapira to fire into the ruins of Vovchansk, which you see right here. The town has been truly leveled. And they are continuing to hit the Russian positions that exist within the rubble of the town in the most northerly area of the city.
Also, by the way, I don't know if y'all heard this as well, but a good sign on the minerals deal. Also, Jenna Toll said that let's see here. Let me scroll back up to it so I'm not misquoting. A letter of intent was signed for the deal. So that's a good sign. It is getting pushed through. And also, the U.S. officials actually backed off of their claim that they had provided Ukraine with 300 billion worth of equipment and aid to Ukraine. And they've lowered that down to a modest 100 billion, which is a lot closer to reality. It's still a little bit inaccurate, in my opinion, but it's a lot closer to reality. And that's a good sign. It might sound like the minerals deal is getting a little bit more fair, but I'm sure there'll be something in there a little jagged when it comes to Ukraine, because, of course, there's got to be a little bit of an edge in the negotiation here. But, you know, it sounds like it's getting better and not necessarily worse, at least by the sound of it.
And that is true. Meanwhile, in the area of Kupiansk, we did get to see, unfortunately, today that a Russian Fab 1500 hit an apartment block. Luckily, we did not hear of any fatalities, but we did hear that one older woman inside the building was injured by the blast, which we could see right here in this clip. Fab 1500s are pretty powerful. They're equivalent to about a 3,000-pound bomb, so even larger than what the Israelis usually use. Moving on from that, though, and into our next clip, we also got to see here of a major Ukrainian offensive that happened today near the Nadia in the Luhansk region. The offensive lasted for about 30 hours and was able to liberate the area of Nadia and the surrounding countryside near to the town, which we can see in this clip right here. We can see, first off, the 3rd Brigade Grad peppering the area where the Russian defenders were at, near to the town of Nadia.
Well done. Did we hit? Yeah, you did. Come on, Fish. Well done. Beautiful. Great job. Go for it again. Rinse, repeat.
Man, you sound like an AI reading machine right there. Great. Look at that. Great hit. Big hit. I was like, man, he's got it. He's got it down. He sounds like me.
Sometimes I feel like AI.
Man, sometimes I feel like computer. Sometimes I say, wow, everything is computer.
I'm telling you, it's paradoxical. Sometimes I think it'd be better if everything wasn't computer.
Sometimes I wonder, would it be better? Would it be worse? I don't know. Well, you see the 3rd Brigade here dismounting their armored personnel carrier and beginning their offensive into the village of Nadia. We can see that they're supported by tanks on their flanks as they continue to dismount the M113 and begin laying down suppressive fire onto the Russians. It appears that the APC commander is yelling at them to advance further into the tree line. And we now see that they have advanced further into the tree line and are continuing to engage the Russians further beyond. We see one guy say we need to go through the end of this effing pond, which usually that's pretty tough. Sometimes requires swimming. We can see that they're now saying that they are hitting the car, and hitting the car. They say that 3 times. We can see them now inside of the trench works, inside of the tree line, continuing to observe the skies above, possibly looking for drones. And there is apparently a drone on the branch somewhere. We now see them yelling to shoot. And that's the end of the clip. But a little bit of a look at that 30-hour offensive, but it was deemed a success by the Ukrainian armed forces, and they were able to gain a considerable amount of land, at least within that direction. We also got to see a drone being taken out a little bit later on in the day in a similar area due to anti-drone activities that are happening in the region, as Reddit takes an incredibly long time to load. But nevertheless, here's the clip.
You know, it's very presumptuous to call it Reddit because they're assuming that I got on there and I already read whatever I was trying to read. I already read it. You know, it's kind of presumptuous.
Honestly, man, it's really presumptuous because it's assuming I can even read, and I really can't. But moving on from that, now to that clip, and on to our next one, we also were able to see down near the area of Torretsk that the Ukrainian armed forces were continuing their offensives against the Russians inside the city, and are continuing to try and drive them out, and further towards the east, back towards Orlivka. We were able to see that the Ukrainians were able to destroy an Akhmat armored car near to the area of the city today, which we can see in this clip right here. We can already see that the Akhmat has been hit and appears to be in a pretty bad shape at the beginning of the clip as the Ukrainian drones continue to pound it on its tiny road.
Ooh.
It's even funnier a second time. Oh my goodness!
Damn. This thing got pounded and then pounded a little extra.
Dude, they said it got pounded, and then it got pounded a little more. It's like, holy smokes, man. Like, I don't think it could get worse than that, honestly. I don't think it could get worse than this. But moving on out of that, because holy smokes, folks, that was actually pretty wild. I didn't expect the Akhmat to look like that. We did get to see the police in Torretsk blowing up the Russians again, as they were planting explosives onto the buildings and setting the charges and taking out the foundations. I don't know what's up with the Reddit clips being so bad today. I don't know what's up with that, but we can see them laying down fire in the middle of the night. You can see the muzzle fire and also the tracers. Honestly, that guy almost shot his own squad member right there. You can watch this again. Watch. He's like, bam, 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 kind of wild. He shoots right there in front of him, like right past him. And then he shoots literally, like, honestly, man, hold up. That looks like it should have fired right at that guy, honestly. I don't know how it didn't hit him.
Yeah. I wonder if it hit in his plates. I wonder. But also, by the way, this seems like the one situation where you'd want a suppressor. You're at night, it's pitch black, and you've got a ton of muzzle flash. It seems like you probably want to suppress that. It
seems like you would. But they like to be a little ballsy here, Matthew, and the police.
Honestly, man, look at that. Look at that haunted house, man. It's like freaking like haunted house lights coming out of there. Did you see that?
Ooh, wait, hang on. Ooh.
it was like special effects or something. It just like happened when he shot like right near the building.
Dude, honestly, that one was crazy. I think that was a tracer in there burning.
Man, it's killing me though. Like I've obviously never fought in a war. I'm not a soldier, but just common sense tells me that many muzzle flashes like that, the enemy's gonna like easily hone in on where you're at. Like that's just like making yourself a target.
Well, apparently it didn't, because it worked out well for them, and they ended up detonating a whole bunch of Russian buildings with those giant satchel charges.
Yeah, I'm telling you what, those police, they don't play games. They play it wild and loose. It pays off.
That's the sound of the police. Whoop, whoop. And that's the end of the clip. That's one angry Cossack right there. Holy smokes. Also, Matthew, you know, you don't need a suppressor to hide the flash of your rifle, right? Let me go show you this. The M1 Garand flash hider.
You're about to show me a muzzle brake or something?
No, I'm not going to show you that, Matthew. I'm not going to show you that. I'm going to show you something even better. The M1 Garand flash hider, also called the Loudener.
The Loudener, just an absolute cone. Like you need it to be louder or something.
The cone was to hide the flames of like the rifle fire, but it also was called the Loudener because obviously that makes it look like it would be louder. Interestingly enough, it really doesn't make it louder, but it is a funny joke, and I like that joke. And so I keep it around, and I call that thing the Loudener. Also, I hate these flash hiders on the M1 Garands. They just look wrong. Especially when you know that the Loudener exists. It's like, why not have the Loudener? Just a way better thing. Also, usually the Loudeners were issued with M1Ds. Example seen here. So there's your Loudener. And it also was provided with this nice sniper cheek rest back here, which was made by a shoe company. And when you look at these things, you'll go, hey, that kind of looks like it's made out of a shoe. And that's because the company that made them made shoes, so it looks very similar. I always found that funny, me personally. You can see it right there. See the lacing, Matthew, on that and how it looks literally just like a shoe that's been like modified for this purpose.
Man, I tell you what, call this Grand Cobbler because this thing right here is cobbling.
Man, call this thing cobbler because it'd be tacking them down. You know what I mean? It'd be tagging them down and taking their souls. But moving on from that, out of the area of Torretsk, we did get to see some Russians are apparently running out of vehicles down in the area of the Pokrovsk front, which we were able to see right here.
This Russian did not meet the PT requirements.
He did not. That Buhanka didn't meet the safety requirements.
They never do.
Well, that's the end of that clip. Very short one, but still an interesting little view of things. We also got to hear a Russian assault was taken out in the area, as we were able to hear from an officer that such a group gathered yesterday to storm the boys from the 59th Brigade in the Pokrovsky direction, overtook tanks, cars, and infantry, began to move, and the tanks got stuck near Svatove. But suddenly, those tanks sent naked infantry on loaves and fields. Naked infantry means that they're like lightly equipped. It doesn't mean that they were like butt naked running through the fields, which were expected to be destroyed, and to hell with them. I like the last part, very creative, to hell with them. I like that. I'll quote that and coin that later. Meanwhile, we also got to see the Russians getting slammed near Pokrovsk on film today as well, if this clip loads in a reasonable amount of time, which is always the most important thing if they load. All right, and we've got Spotadrenaline. But when you see here, the boys coming in on the Lada and the motorbikes.
And it's the Warner brothers again. But nobody warned these brothers. They're going right into the trouble.
Man, they said warn a brother, but these guys couldn't even be bothered to warn their mother. Oh!
Oh, brother, look out.
Oh, brother! Oh, brother!
Oh, my God. Man, was that the camera effect, or was that actually, like, shaking like that?
It was the camera effect, I think.
Man, I'm not going to lie. That made it much more dramatic than it was. Look at that thing that's going off. It's leaving like a trail of napalm.
Bro, that thing be leaving a trail of flames. Call it Hell Rider, because that thing be riding in hell.
Man, warn a brother about that fire they're about to start.
Man, they call them the Worm Busters. Watch out, Hot Dog Man might get excited on that one.
Aw, man.
Oh man, I hope they bust my worm. It's like Hot Dog Man would say something like that. Oh man. Oh man, I need to find myself another helpless Ukrainian refugee woman. Oh man. But anyways, we can see them continuing to just slam the Russians down there. This little assault column, they more so were the ones getting assaulted, not the other way around. But moving on from that, now to that clip, and on into our next one, further down the line, and in the middle of the Zaporizhia front, we did get to see a pretty nice Russian radar system getting a shellacking. And when I say a shellacking, I don't mean it was getting a shellacking in a good way. It was getting a shellacking in a bad way. There it is. And oh, there goes the radar. And in a second, about to hit the dome. Oh!
Oh, man. Call them Domo because they're doing not the Roboto.
Russians, they can't even get dome anymore. It gets blown away. But anyways, that's the end of that clip. Nice to see that they were able to hit such a significant kind of radar systems, at least within this area. And also, on a more unfortunate note, we also get to see within Kherson that the Russians have now resorted to literally just straight up bombing residential areas in their free time. Here's the clip of them doing that. I don't know what the Russians have with attacking civilians. It is a crime against humanity. But once again, really showing the reality of this war that we don't really show a lot on this channel because we try and focus on the front lines. But the reason why the Ukraine war keeps going and the reason why the Ukrainians keep fighting is because this is what the Russians are doing to their people. And for that reason, that's why the Ukrainians really have such a strong resolve that they're really not wanting to give up whatsoever. You can also see that in a video that came out today from a guy who has less than normal amounts of hair and may be financially destitute, who went to Ukraine, and it appeared that pretty much everyone he talked to in Ukraine was clearly stating that they would keep the war going no matter how long it needs to go, because they are not going to live under Russian subjugation, especially because of things like this. But moving on from that and out of that little bit of news in Kherson, very unfortunate news that is, it is time for us to move up into Kyiv and to cover the speech from President Volodymyr Zelensky here on day 1149. Oh, boy, does he not have a speech today? Let me go to his YouTube channel. Let me go to his...
Please, Zelensky, you have to come through for us today. Please give us a speech. We rely on speech. We live on speech. Does he have speech?
I need to have a water break, and this is the only way that I can have a chance to drink some water and have a good time. And so... without further ado, we were able to find something. It is 38 minutes long, so we are only going to play the part that's needed. So, without further ado, subtitles are Ukrainian auto... Okay, good. Okay, so, without further ado, folks, here is the... Let me make sure that we... Yeah, here's the speech from President Volodymyr Zelensky. Speech!
Доброго дня, шановні журналісти. Я почну з дуже важливих речей для нашої держави і для безпеки. Мені тільки що доповідав міністр внутрішніх справ Ігор Клименко щодо нападу на українського журналіста Юрія Макарова. Стався напад, був удар ножем, слава Богу. Пан Макаров живий, ніж залишився на місці. Експертиза, працюють слідчі групи. Одна з версій, що це сталося через його професійну діяльність, висвітлення війни Росії проти України, але я думаю, що у міністерства і у поліції національної буде більш детальне пояснення. Ми бажаємо йому якнайшвидшого одужання. Друге, наша команда сьогодні працює в Парижі. У мене була розмова сьогодні з президентом Макроном щодо зустрічі європейських команд і представників Сполучених Штатів Америки. Ми погоджували з ним однакове розуміння. По-перше, у нас однакові погляди на дії, які відбуваються, і дипломатичні в тому числі. Ми обговорюємо на рівні NSA 4 країн гарантії безпеки. Є Британія, Франція, Україна і Німеччина. Була така зустріч, і вона є, ця зустріч. Далі є зустріч на рівні міністрів оборони. Тобто у нас поїхала бригада міністр закордонних справ, голова офісу і міністр оборони з української сторони. Міністр оборони працює з міністром оборони Франції. У них окремо є зустріч. Далі є зустріч міністрів закордонних справ окремо 4 країн. І буде зустріч всіх разом, включаючи представника Сполучених Штатів Америки пана Віткофа. Зустрічі, наша позиція, те, що ми обговорюємо контингент і гарантії безпеки, і відповідну коаліцію, про яку ви знаєте, це окреме наше напрацювання. А також проговорюється питання сісфаєр, припинення вогню, зривів припинення вогню з російської сторони, на нашу думку. Я не знаю, чим завершиться їх зустріч. Ми почуємо всі сторони і будемо знати всі деталі. З президентом Макроном ми обговорили, що мандату у моєї команди, у його команди немає обговорення території України. їх мандат, який я їм дав, обговорення питання припинення вогню, включаючи різні формати. Бажане повне припинення вогню, безумовне, але можна обговорювати і безумовне припинення вогню по цивільній інфраструктурі, енергетики, по морю, те, що ми до цього обговорювали. Тобто в різних форматах всі ми обговорювали. Україна готова до безумовного припинення вогню, як ми це декларували неодноразово після пропозиції Сполучених Штатів Америки. Яка сьогодні пропозиція буде сторін? Ну, подивимось. Це друге. Ми зараз можемо про щось говорити. Я просто хотів би сказати головні тези, які я хотів би. У мене була сьогодні важлива доповідь головкома Сирського. Я хотів би подякувати і привітати Збройні Сили України, наші Сили безпеки і оборони. Сьогодні стався наступ Російської Федерації в напрямку Покровськ на сході нашої держави. В більшості своїй 14-та бригада на себе це прийняла удар Національної гвардії, 117-та бригада. Також Україна знищила сьогодні, готуючись до цього наступу, Україна знищила повністю всю цю групу людей. Це було 115 одиниць техніки, 200 убитих і 30 поранених. Дякуємо за службу Збройним силам. Вчора ввечері був наступ у них на Запорізькому напрямку. Ворог втратив на Запоріжжі 80 людей, і 80 двохсотих, і 117 трьохсотих, і 40 одиниць техніки. Тобто це те, про що ми говорили нашим партнерам. Росія буде робити кілька хвиль наступів на Сумському, на Харківському, на Запорізькому напрямку і, можливо, на Сході, тому що вони довго там не наступали. Так, ну, дуже важливо, що українські сили їх зустрічали. Це дуже важливо, що це не було неочікувано. Далі, ну, два важливих пакета санкцій буде мною введено завтра по пропагандистам Кремля і виробникам ракет «Іскандер». І зараз наша команда працює з американською командою онлайн щодо меморандуму про корисні копалини. Саме зараз, я маю на увазі прямо в цей момент, також про деталі можу розповісти. Ну і важлива інформація, вона не дуже приємна. Ми отримали нарешті інформацію, що Китай поставляє зброю Російської Федерації. І ми готові будемо говорити про це детально. На сьогодні ми маємо інформацію загальну від Сил Служби безпеки, від розвідок про порох, артилерію. І я думаю, що ми дуже детально зможемо про це сказати наступного тижня. Особливо про дані, що ми вважаємо, що представники Китаю займаються виробництвом деякої зброї на території Росії.
Да, дякую за цю можливість. Галина Остаповець, новини Лайв. У мене запитання. Ваша позиція, мабуть, ви чули заяву Вітхофа після його перемовин із Путіним. Він заявив, що начебто розглядається угода про 5 територій українських. Що ви про це знаєте? На що ми реально готові піти в цьому плані? І наскільки далеко ми зараз від угоди про всеосяжне перемир'я? Дякую.
Дуже дякую. Як я вам і сказав, ми сьогодні обговорюємо безумовне припинення вогню. І до припинення вогню ми не обговорюємо територію. Ви знаєте моє ставлення і які у нас червоні лінії. Ми ніколи не будемо визнавати ті чи інші наші тимчасово окуповані території, українські землі, визнавати російські. Третє, вважаю, що пан Вітков прийняв для себе стратегію російської сторони. Вважаю, що вона дуже небезпечна, тому що він свідомо або несвідомо, я не знаю, розповсюджує російські наративи. В будь-якому випадку це не допомагає. І Я не бачу в нього мандата обговорювати українські території, бо території наші, нашим людям належать, нашому народові, і не тільки нам, а майбутнім українцям. Тому взагалі не розумію, про що він говорить. Тобто ми все це чули, але ми все це чули як бред пана Путіна. Я не думав, що у нього є відповідні люди, які продовжують ці наративи, розповсюджують і в інших цивілізованих країнах. Тому я серйозно до цього не ставлюся. Щодо всеосяжного припинення вогню, Україна готова підтримувати. Ми підтримуємо це. Ми вважаємо, що Росія не готова, тому що вони зацікавлені, як ми і говорили, зробити кілька хвиль наступів. Бажано для них, вони для себе бажають захопити якомога більше квадратних кілометрів, тому що вони саме так до нас відносяться, рахують нас квадратними кілометрами, і вони це хочуть, щоб підняти градус і більше так. Я вважаю, що це ми будемо бачити і в різних форматах цих хвиль. В наступальних атаках, те, що ми бачимо, ракетних ударах, то, що будуть максимально підігрівати цю ситуацію, щоб в момент остаточних перемовин бити в більш сильній позиції. Ось що вони роблять. Чим ближче президент Трамп буде до серйозних санкцій і серйозних кроків щодо русських, через те, як мінімум, що вони не підтримують позицію всеосяжного припинення вогню, тим слабкіше, тим ми всі будемо ближче до припинення вогню. Я думаю, саме так. Це залежить від цього.
Дякую, Сафронова Олеся. Блумберг. В мене питання щодо мінеральної угоди. Скажіть, будь ласка, чи обговорюється в контексті мінеральної угоди зараз Сполученими Штатами використання української газотранспортної системи, зокрема труби? І чи допускає Україна, наприклад, відновлення транзиту через нашу газотранспортну систему? І чи наполягають на цьому американська сторона? Дякую.
Дякую. Передусім, який стан наших розмов? Технічна зустріч була дійсно продуктивна і позитивна. Я вважаю, що це добре. Зустріч технічна була в різному форматі, офлайн в Штатах, онлайн також. Вчора, сьогодні працюють. Наша перша віце-прем'єрка працює з командою Бесента і з Бесентом безпосередньо. Значить, американська сторона повернула нас до перших кроків, як було. Ви знаєте, що ми всі працювали над серйозною вже угодою, почали працювати, яка повинна піти в парламент, відповідні пройти процедури, і юристи повинні попрацювати так, щоб це був успіх для обох держав. І тому технічна зустріч команд була позитивна, тому що ми бачимо, як сторони йдуть на зустріч одне одного. Пару днів тому американська сторона запропонувала все ж таки повернутися іще до одного кроку, поки працюють юристи над угодою. Це меморандум про, як сказати, про наміри, так називається. Меморандум про наміри. У нас наміри позитивні, ми конструктивні, ми це показуємо. Тому меморандум про наміри, тобто не сама угода, а меморандум про намір може бути підписаний онлайн сьогодні. Саме сьогодні наша сторона сказала, окей, зараз з американською стороною. Я так розумію, що вони зараз, віце-прем'єрка працює з американською стороною над текстом. Але, чесно, мені здається, що це меморандум, він важливий, перший крок. Ну, чому не погодитись обом країнам?
And we'll be ending it right there because this does go on.
Zelensky said, you can send it to me on DocuSign. I'm not coming back to the White House. He said, you can just send it to me online if you want.
He's like, I'm not going back. I'm not going back. He's like, dude, I'm not going back to that. Honestly, I can't really blame him for that. But beyond that, that is the end of the speech from President Volodymyr Zelensky here on day 1149 of the war. And I hope that y'all found that interesting. Because it sure was enlightening as to the mindset and the thoughts of the Ukrainian government through the words of the president of the state of Ukraine. And so with that, it is time for us to move on into the second segment of this stream where we get to talk to all of y'all. And boy howdy, is it always a fun kind of a segment. We always get to talk to y'all and have one hell of a fun time doing it. And I appreciate y'all greatly for watching so far tonight, and I also gotta appreciate y'all greatly for subscribing in quite large numbers tonight as well. Yes, indeed. Many people have continued to subscribe to the Enforcer channel due to its prowess in news reporting and its ability to cover the world's conflicts in the greatest and most enlightening way that allows for people to understand the true realities of what are happening right now in the world. I have to say, it's a wonderful thing to know that we've reached 345,100 subscribers and that the Lee Spring Army continues to grow day in and day out. The dividends continue to pay in, and we are great to see that everyone is continuing to be a proud and patriotic member of the Lee Spring Army, a global organization supporting and interested in American and Western interest first and foremost. And so, I gotta say, a massive thanks to all of y'all once again. And Matthew, I understand that we have another interesting question that has been presented to our audience in the form of a poll, and that many people have decided to put in their answers, and it appears that it is a unanimous answer. And so, Matthew, what do we have here? What do we have, and what are your opinions on it?
All right, so this poll question says, Russia threatens to treat the Taurus missile strikes by Ukraine as a direct German involvement if the Taurus are indeed sent to Ukraine, and what are your thoughts? 70% said Russia will do absolutely nothing, while 21% said there will be some strong words from Russia, and 5% said Russia will attack Germany for it. And Russia will do a damn thing. They'll do nothing. Because they said that about Britain, then the scalp was sent, nothing happened. They said it about France. France sent their version of the scalp. Nothing happened. They're now saying that to Germany. They're going to send their version of the scalp, which is the Taurus, which is a little bit more stealth and a little bit more better, in my opinion. And they'll do absolutely nothing. But they are getting scared, though, because the Taurus can hit the Kerch. And, of course, the Russians want to keep the Kerch Bridge in operation because that is their link to Crimea, excuse me. So I would say, generally speaking, Russia will do nothing. I'm with the 70%. But they are going to bluff it through like they always love to do. And at this point, they should feel silly for doing that. But Enforcer, what say you?
I think that the Russians should feel silly, absolutely silly, because it is a preposterous idea that the Russian Federation will do anything against the Federal Republic of Germany over their provision of Taurus missiles to the state of Ukraine. Absolutely ludicrous, I tell you, absolutely crazy. And I would say that, as a matter of fact, not only are the Russians going to do nothing, they are going to do nothing, and they are going to like it, because the Russians in reality have nothing to do rather than start World War III, and why do they want to start getting busy dying when they're already doing that in Ukraine alone, much less against the Western Europeans, who are far more powerful than Ukraine could have ever imagined to be. And so, I hope that does address that well, at least in my opinion, as I would have to be with a large majority, that the Russian Federation will do absolutely nothing. And so with that, we are on into the questions themselves. And I understand that we have quite a number of them tonight, but we actually do have some room for some live chats tonight as well, I do believe. And so, Matthew, what do we got?
All right, so jumping right into the fray, right into our first super chat of the last segment, this one is going to go to none other than John Brewer. And John puts in a $20 support. And thank you very much, John, for that support and helping to keep the channel running. And John said, take a live chat question, please.
We will make sure to take a live chat question, John, but I got to thank you greatly for the support and helping this channel to keep on running. Because if it wasn't for folks like you, we wouldn't be able to make this thing possible. We wouldn't be able to keep this thing rolling day in and day out. And I got to thank you greatly for that once again. Because if it wasn't for folks like you, our lights wouldn't be on. We wouldn't be eating. And, of course, most importantly, we wouldn't be able to work on this full time. And so a massive thanks to you so much once again. And we will be making sure to get one from the live chat. So what do we got, Matthew? What do we got?
And in honor of John's super chat, this one goes to Fred Zerzal, who says, didn't I read years ago, before this all started, that China had a written plan to defeat the United States on a four-front war?
You probably did hear about that, but that's propaganda. That's that Chinese are like the grand chess master people, kind of a propaganda, sort of a shtick. It's not real, and the Chinese couldn't beat us on a four-front war. There's just no way. The reality of the fact is that they have a very hard time fighting beyond their own borders. They don't even have a fighting structure set up beyond their borders. Right now, they're still working like special expeditionary force sorts of things when they go to Djibouti. I said it. I said booty. But beyond that, that's what they're doing. So it'd be pretty hard for them to fight us on a forefront war, considering that they don't even have a command structure that would really allow for them to do that outside of their own borders. So I would highly doubt it, in my honest opinion. And also, one other thing, folks, I just saw this, and I was very curious about it. What does Beijing International Airport look like? Because there really aren't a lot of aircraft here at this airport. Did you notice that, Matthew? It's like most of the tarmac's empty.
And where is this and where is this again?
This is in What's Up, Beijing.
Yeah, that is kind of weird. Like hardly anything's ported here.
Huh.
Look at this. You know, isn't it crazy that pretty much no matter where you go in the world, all airports have the same look and feel to them generally? It's kind of weird.
Honestly, I don't like that. Like, I would like there to be some differences, but they all look the same. Every single one of them. Like, you know, that's one thing, man, that I respect about train stations, that train stations actually look different country to country, and even place to place. Airports look identical everywhere. Like, like this honestly looks like LAX.
Airports look like national security personified. Like if you can imagine a place that just reeks of like super complex like security routines and stuff like that, and just herding people like cattle, the airport is it. But at the same time, though, I would still deal with it rather than going on the train.
Oh, get the hell out of here. Get the hell out of here. Ah, dude, you gotta be kidding me, man. You've gotta be freaking kidding me. Dude, I was about to come down here and show a beautiful train station and you stole it from me.
You know, to prove my point,
Oh, how?
you didn't take the train to Seattle.
Well, yeah, it'd take too long.
Oh, exactly. It takes too long. The train takes too long. Defund the train.
No, never. I'm
Yes.
not. I actually say we should put billions into the trains and make them work. But look at this, Matthew. You cannot deny that has more class than any international airport.
It has more class, but at the same time, I feel like you're like one of these folks that's gotten on some some of that white stuff or something like that. They're like, here, just try a little, just try a little, man. Come on, you'll like it. Let's get some more. Let's get some more. We have to tell them no. I said you gotta tell them no.
Hold up. This is Germany's high-speed rail map. Hold up, let me get a bigger one. That. Okay.
But Germany, though, I mean, oh, come on, man. Come on, man. Germany's different, man.
But they made it work. They made it work. How come we can't make it work? Hold up. Let me go show you this. They made it work with tofu drag. How come we can't?
Because we actually care about the safety of our passengers and we actually put safety protocols in place.
We need to have that. We need to replicate that where it works for us. We need to. Yeah, we need to. That's what I think. Because why is it that we are the wealthiest country on earth and we can throw money at anything and everything? We just threw another like $8 billion at Israel just this weekend, but we can't put down $60 billion to make the American railroads look like that. Why in the world is that so tough? Like you could sit there and be like, hey, I will take the plane from Atlanta to New York City, and then from there, I'm going to hop on a train that will take me to Philadelphia, and it will cut down the amount of time that I actually have to take. Because instead of flying from, say, like Atlanta to New York, and then having to sit there and wait for a layover for like an hour, and then finally fly to Philadelphia, and then you have to go through all the bullshit in that, you could just hop on the train to do it instead. It's just so much easier. It makes more sense. It just makes more sense from a transportation perspective. The trains dominate the middle distance kind of journeys. Cars are for short distance, trains are for middle distances, and planes are for long distances. Why do we just not have any middle distance transport? You have this weird little gray area where planes are too cumbersome to go these middle range distances and cars take too long. So any mid-range trip just becomes a pain in the ass because there's nothing filling in that little gap. Like the high-speed trains could do it, man. They could do it, and they could do it easy. We just have to put money into it.
You know, air travel would be just fine. Like nobody would object to air travel at all. The only thing, and I think if everybody's being honest, this is the main thing that pisses everybody off with air travel, is it's TSA. That's what does it every single time. I know TSA is supposed to stop bad people from getting on the planes and doing bad things, and of course that's a very noble goal. But in reality, there's got to be a better way to do it, because it's like TSA is like a freaking nightmare for most people. The lines get crazy long. It makes it a damn hassle to get through the line. You have to arrive at the airport at least 2 hours early to get through the line, or you might miss your flight. And then you got to get basically molested going through there. It's like nobody wants that. And it's like, can we like deal with the threat like with some technology? Can we do like a scan where people just walk through the place and they can see if they've got something and AI can detect it and they pull the person to the side or something without having to go through all that intrusive other crap?
I don't know, man. I don't know. But one thing I will say, man, all right? Here's my take, Matthew. Here's my take. What if, Matthew, we took the CSX executive train, all right? Let's take a look at it. Well, we took the CSX executive trains, all right? Luxurious, nice. Honestly, those railcar paint jobs are not my favorite. I really like Norfolk Southern's better. But what if we took them, Matthew, and we told the private railroad companies that they would have to set up their own rail service, but we would subsidize the losses?
I don't want to subsidize the losses of the railroads. No, they can subsidize their own losses. They can go out of business.
Well, we subsidize the losses for the aircraft companies, Matthew.
But we have to do that. We have to do that because the airlines are crucial. That's a critical infrastructure.
Well, railroads are critical infrastructure, Matthew. Why won't we bail them out? Why won't we bail
because
them out,
CSX, Norfolk, the big boys, they handle themselves. Okay, they handle themselves. They may get a subsidy here and there. I don't know, but generally though, the cargo people, they take care of business. But the passenger people and the trains have never figured it out, so because it just doesn't work.
Man, passenger rail works just as good as passenger airlines, man. The margins are slim. Usually they're running in negatives. You just have to accept that and be like, that's what it is. That's what it is to provide a public service. Because, you know, when you provide drinking water to people, Matthew, there is no profit to be made providing drinking water. It's just a public service. And that's what it is.
Otherwise people would die if they didn't have that, so they kind of got to give it to them.
Well, Matthew, some people might have to be able to get around for a job. Some people might have to get around for a job, Matthew, and that might be the way they do it. And then you're telling them, "Oh, screw you, man! You have to pay for an insanely expensive plane ticket or drive the whole way." And by the time you get down Interstate 20 to Atlanta, you're flying out the front windshield into a tree because some idiot slammed on the brakes of the interstate going 90. What an idiot! That's what happens. The trains are easier, man. The trains are easier, middle range distances, man. I'm not saying like the train's supposed to dominate cross country. It can't, Matthew. It can't. And it can't do it in the short range. But a trip from like Birmingham to Atlanta, getting a high-speed train to do that, it would beat out the car and the plane easy.
Man, you know that train's about to be a cesspool. Like, let's be honest here. That's about to be a cesspool. I don't know why, but people don't behave themselves on trains for some reason. Like the people that get on trains just act like it's their like living room or something. Like, if you'd have seen that freaking Amtrak car that I walked into, the observation car, like before they opened it to the public in the morning, man, I'll tell you that like the train's just kind of rough. I'm not gonna lie. And also, people were saying something about they said hobos or something like that. I'm not judging nobody, but it's like at least if you get on the train, at least behave yourself and have some manners and stuff. It's like you don't have to be acting all like aloof that you're not around other people. It's just it has a bad rap, man. It just has a bad rap.
But it wouldn't have a bad rap, man. It wouldn't have a bad rap, man, if it was done right. If it was done right, it wouldn't have a bad rap. Dude, I don't know why you're so against the trains, man. Honestly, I just don't get it. Because when you go here in a little bit and you have your experience, you're gonna be like Danny DeVito in that one movie scene that became the meme where he goes, "Oh my God, I get it," and then you'll be into them because like when they're actually done right, they're actually incredibly good.
Yeah, but I mean, I can't get into the details right now because it's a little bit of an OPSEC thing, but it's not cheap.
Well, that's because, Matthew, that one, well, I can't get into that. That's an OPSEC thing. But anyways, we can't talk about that more. We're about to start spilling the beans. But nevertheless, take a gander at this, folks, the city of Birmingham. And take a gander at this, folks. This is the BNSF intermodal yard right here. This is where BNSF runs their railroad operations. This is also in the middle of the hood. We found that out today because we went up here to try and look at this place, and we were like, wow, this is the hood. And we turned right around, and then we drove right back out and did not stop. Also, Matthew, if you were wondering, hey, where's the Boyles yard? It's up here. That's why I told you we're
Yeah,
not even
I'm
going up
afraid you're
here.
not taking me up here, man.
Yeah,
You're not
I'll
taking
let
me
you.
up here. I already know what's up here. That Shell station right there is a notorious one, I think. But no, I'm not going up here. I'll pass, man.
Yeah, dude, that's why I was like, yeah, we're not even gonna go up here and look. Also, let's see what you could even see. Oh, you could see nothing anyway, so that's cool. I wonder if you could see something here, maybe. Nope. Yeah, you couldn't see squat at this thing anyways. So we would have driven into the hood and been shot and not even seen a train, which is kind of unfortunate. So really the only one that we can look at here in this whole city, Matthew, is the one over here, that Norris Yard. Norfolk Southern is the only one that's kind of like viewer friendly, I guess. Rest of them are not, and the rest of them are also in the hood, so a little unfortunate with that one. Oh, look at that. What's this? Huh, looks like it used to be something, and then they tore it all up. Kind of sad, like...
You know, I might, like on my side channel, since I was talking about the side channel and stuff like that, I'm going to upload that travel video that I was talking about on this trip we're going on. I might have to do a Running on Fear hood review and upload it about Birmingham, about the most deadly areas of Birmingham. Should I go drive to the deadliest areas of Birmingham to film it and show you all? And, you know, that's what gets clicks, right? Like Enforcer Matt putting himself in harm's way for the viewers. That gets views. That's what all the other travel YouTubers do. They put gone to the hood, gone wrong, gone terrible. It's just gone bad.
Dude, you know, like we could actually make a clickbait video that would be real by saying I went to the most dangerous city in America, and it's literally like maybe like 9 miles from us. Like honestly, like we could actually do that, and it actually would be real. Like it actually would be real because Vesper is the most dangerous place in America right now.
Man, I'm gonna walk up and down the streets and be like, Matt 45 here, walking up down O Block. We're not in danger at all out here. We're just fine. You subscribe for more.
Wait a minute. Oh, you're talking about that time that Hickok 45 went to O Block. You know, I actually saw O Block today. Dude, honestly, man, I respect him for that, man. That was very ballsy because honestly, it's not O Block that's dangerous. It's everything around O Block that's even more. Well, O Block's actually pretty dangerous, but everything surrounding O Block, crazily enough, is even more dangerous. So here it is up here. That's the O Block right there. This weird looking like apartment building layout thing. It's right by an intermodal yard, actually.
I actually know a little bit about the whole gang thing because I had to study it when I was doing criminal justice. There's two rival gangs here. I think it is actually the Bloods and the Crips.
No,
I think it is.
No. Different groups.
Who's it now?
Different groups. It's like the like Young Thug Disciples or something like that. I forgot what.
Oh, that's right. The Gangster Disciples, and also there's the other ones like I think it's like the other disciples. Can't remember the name, but the O Block gang, the one it's here, which I don't remember which one it is. They're fighting with 63rd, which is 63rd Street over there. If you go up a little bit on the map,
right up here,
they're fighting with 63rd. That's how close the ops are to the O Block. So that's how bad it is. Just murders galore around here. Like it's just a mayhem.
Now let's drop down. Oh, what the hell is that? Is this an overhead rail line? Hold up, dude. I think this is like that Chicago overhead. Dude, no way. You can go here on the overhead rail? Dude, that's actually crazy. They actually have a station literally right at O Block for that. I would never in my days do that. Ever. What's this up here? Is this like a yard for them up there? Like, honestly, man, the Chicago overhead railways look like shit every time I see them. I'm always like,
I wonder why.
I wonder. I wonder. Probably because Chicago isn't really the greatest of places. But yeah, anyways, let's get back down to O Block. You can actually get really close to O Block here. Notice, Matthew, that there's no like little picture blips things in O Block. No one's brave enough to go do that one. But
yeah, I think they're demolished, by the way. I like in the modern day.
Are you sure? Because I'm pretty sure O Block is still here.
Yeah, O Block is Garden Park or Garden something, and I think they demolished all of it. You can pull it up.
I don't think they have, man, because the satellite pictures from 2025 and the buildings are still here.
They couldn't get anybody to drive by there. Let's see. Let's see here. Someone says it's Partway Gardens is the name of it. They're saying that it's not demolished, but they were alleging it was demolished. Okay, it's like a whole lore about this.
I think they refurbed it or something.
I'm reading the Reddit of Chiracology, or Chirac. Let's see. Oh my God. Let's see. It says it's been sold and stuff, and they're demolishing it. It says it's been sold, but they're not confirming it's demolished. So apparently there's a whole bunch of lore about this place. You're not sure if it's been demolished or not.
And everyone's so scared they won't even go down there and check. Like, it's only just a drive down the street. No one's even going to do it. Dude, God bless the workers of Norfolk Southern working in this yard right next to O-Block. They're literally ducking from gunfire all day as they're loading and offloading trains. That's a tough one. But let's see here. What are the surrounding, like, West Woodlawn? What does that look like? Yo, it's Montgomery, Alabama! Dude, it's just like it!
Man, I'll tell you what, these streets right here, these are some tough streets right here. The filthy streets of Chicago.
Dude, these are the streets we know, actually. This is literally as bad as Montgomery is.
It really, honestly, it is. It's tough.
Yeah, actually, man, like, honestly, like, that's actually shocking, y'all. I was expecting something horrendous. This is actually, like, very close to what we were growing up around. Like, that was so bad, no one had even been through there since 2007. Look at that.
Man, I'm surprised. You would think the HOA around this area would, like, tell people they need to mow their yards a little more.
Dude, now in 2022, this kind of looks like it's getting gentrified a little bit. Look at this. They're planting trees and stuff. I'm like, what the hell's going on? Huh. Anyways.
I think they're turning this into some, like, historical, like, surely they're not about to turn it into, like, a historical spot where it's like, Chirac, 63rd versus O-Block. It's like, come on now, come on.
Dude, it's gonna be like the motorcycle gang kind of like story things where they're like the little rascals and the yellow South yellow bellies came together in a shootout or something. It's like, honestly, it's like, I don't really care. Like, I hate to say it. Jerk 48. What's this about? A Jamaican restaurant. All right. Sonny's barbecue. All right.
Well, see, someone said there's a gang, Devil's Disciples. Honestly, they all seem pretty wicked. I mean, they're into murder and crime and all kinds of horrific things. So they could all be classified as Devil's Disciples, I guess you could say.
Burger King. Honestly, man, look at how many buildings have been demolished through here, man, where, like, lots are just empty. Look at that.
Yeah, I think this is the area where they were selling homes for like $1 or something because they were just wanting to get the taxes, like the property taxes off of it. So the city's like, hey, you can have it for $1. And everybody's like, hell no.
Dude, that is rough. That is so rough. Dude, actually, South Chicago is like the really rough area. North Chicago is kind of like all right. Not really that much better off, but it's still better off than South Chicago. But South Chicago, south of this canal here, that's where things get rough. And man, honestly, man, something that blows me away is the amount of rail yards in Chicago. Like, when you zoom out, you can see dozens of them. Like, look, boom, one right there, one right there. Three huge ones right all here. Another one there. There's even smaller ones like that one near O-Block. I mean, it's insane, man, the amount of, like, infrastructure that exists in the city.
Yeah, some speculate that it's actually the presence of the trains that turned it into what it is today.
You know, I'm doubting that one, Matthew. I'm really doubting that one. But let's take a look, man, at Chicago O'Hare. Huh. That looks different.
This is actually somewhat of a unique airport, actually.
Probably got a whole World War II F4F in this thing. Bro, this is actually a unique airport. Another airport that's also unique is the Seattle airport. The Seattle airport actually has, like, unique thing going for it, too. But every other airport feels just about the same. The only one, though, that I would say is absolutely hell is Charlotte. Charlotte Douglas International Airport. This was a terrible airport, and I absolutely hated it. Because, Matthew, this is what they did. They landed, they pulled us up to this gate, and they're like, hey, yo, by the way, y'all gotta go all the way over to E-Gate. Have fun. So you gotta sprint, because there's no way to get there, all the way through the airport here, all the way through this little gangway thing right here, and then all the way down here to this area, and then the plane was right there. So I
Give them a break, man. They're expanding, man. Give them a break.
Dude, I'm not giving them a break because they had no way to get across that airport easy, and I only had like 30 minutes to do it. So I was pissed, honestly. I was like, this is stupid. I don't know why they set it up this way. And also, what's the Sullenberger Aviation Museum all about? Oh, look, it's the Sully Sullenberger plane.
That's pretty cool. Also, fun fact, by the way, also, I like that U.S. Airways livery. Like, I really miss that livery right there. I have a model of that, and I like that one. It's pretty cool. Also, by the way, fun fact, the LAX airport, they've been trying to expand that. Speaking of the expansion here at Charlotte, they've been trying to expand LAX, but they can't do it because of the horseshoe design of the drive-through part of the airport, the inbound side where you drop people off and pick people up from their flights. That inhibits how they can expand the airport. So out of all the airports in the country that have expanded, the one that stays one of the busiest, which is LAX. I think Atlanta is the busiest. LAX is one of the top busiest. They can't even really properly expand this airport and with more runways and things like that, and also more terminal space.
Well, dude, why don't they just go talk to the playas up here at Playa del Rey and just, build another runway up there?
I don't think they're qualified.
Oh, well, maybe not. I don't know. But one thing that I find interesting, man, about the Los Angeles area is that there's also another international airport, Long Beach, that's never mentioned. And it's run entirely by Southwest Airlines. And that might be the reason why they're not mentioned.
Great heavens.
Oh, great heavens. And they're about to go bankrupt like Spirit nearly from what I'm hearing. So, man, Spirit lived up to their namesake, man. They died and withered away like a spirit.
They truly did, honestly. Also, by the way, I'll tell you all the airports I've been to, my impression of them. We've been to Birmingham Airport. Honestly, kind of a chill airport, actually. Birmingham's not that bad. Like, it's usually not busy in TSA and stuff like that. So it's probably the easiest airport I've ever been to. And it's pretty quiet. Not too much going on there. And it's also pretty small. The Atlanta airport is like brawlhalla. Like, I don't know what it is with the workers in like the Atlanta airport. Every time I've gone in there, like there's been a problem with like somebody working there, like either somebody being rude or someone wanting to fist fight or something, some hostile like people working in Atlanta for some reason, or at least that's what I've seen. I know some people that are like, oh, Atlanta's friendly. It's not the experience I've had, but the LAX airport, I would say pretty busy, I would say, but it was absolute hell. Like trying to get out of there to get an Uber, you had to go to like some side lot or something and go find your way to it. Yeah, way out here. And it was like freaking mayhem. Like it was confusing as hell. And I felt lost like really badly. So LAX was interesting. And also with it being close to the ocean, the winds are really bad. Like the turbulence coming into land was pretty rough because of that wind coming off the water. So that was fascinating. Let's see. What was the other airport? Is that the only airports we've ever been to? Or no, we went to Seattle. That's right. Seattle was pretty good too. It was actually somewhat of an older airport, shockingly, to me at least, but generally pretty chill. Like everybody's friendly here at this one. Like unlike Atlanta, everybody was actually friendly at the Seattle airport. It wasn't brawlhalla, so that was a good thing.
Man, Seattle was honestly my favorite airport so far. I found it to be really chill. I like the aesthetic. It's an older international airport, but I like that kind of a feel. Let me see if I can show you like the front entrance area because it is actually pretty cool. I don't have any pictures of that now, do they? Let's see here. Well, it should be here. It should be like right in here. Well, this is the outside. But Seattle's actually pretty cool, and I like Seattle. Let's see. I've gone to Charlotte. Charlotte was hell on earth. Honestly, it beats Atlanta, in my opinion, for what it was, because you had to run everywhere. Everyone was running everywhere. There was no stopping. And there's no way to get around. There's no trams. There's no speedways. Like, those speed walking things right there, they had all of those ripped up when I went there. It was shit. It sucked. I hated it, and I want to avoid Charlotte as much as I can. But sadly we can't. So that's kind of the shame of it all. But this place was terrible. I hated it. Another airport that I've been to is Dallas-Fort Worth, which is the one that you forgot about, Matthew. Is this one right here?
Oh, honestly, out of all of them, I'd say Dallas-Fort Worth. I saw someone dogging on Dallas-Fort Worth a minute ago. I thought it was pretty decent. Like personally, it was a very it looked new and it felt like it was pretty clean. And it's also the home to American Airlines, which is pretty good. Some people dog on American. I thought American was pretty good. And the best part of it all is when you ride the People Mover in this airport, which is a tram that goes around it. It has like a crazy speed limit on it. It goes fast. Like it takes off fast. It doesn't play around. It slings you in the car. I love that.
It was a very cool airport and an interesting experience, to say the least. But Dallas-Fort Worth was not bad. Not bad at all. Let's see.
Also, we went to Heathrow. We went to Heathrow in London, by the way. And that was, honestly, Heathrow was okay. I'll be honest with you. Heathrow felt a little bit dingy, I think. It's hard to describe it. It didn't feel totally great. It felt kind of dark and dingy in spots of it. And I was like, I'm not a huge fan of it.
Yeah, Heathrow was all right. Heathrow was all right. Another airport that, let's see, let me think. Let's see. So let's see, yeah, that would have been all the airports I've gone to so far. But there's not really a lot of them, though. Like, as far as international airports go, there isn't many of them. I mean, there's major hubs and then the spokes, which are the smaller airports. So you really don't get to go a lot to all of the smaller airports. But the big ones, I mean, most of them are okay. Some of them are not that good. But anyways, with that, I hope we addressed that well. I hope you all enjoyed that little rabbit hole of us just yapping about airports. But you know something, folks? I have been in a couple of train stations as well. And I'd have to tell y'all that my favorite train station that I've ever been in would actually be the one in Washington, D.C. Washington, D.C. Union Station. This is a cool one. Let me see if I can... Let's see here. Well, let me just drop you all down because they really don't have like a centralized marker for this thing for some reason. But this is the inside of the station, which is very, very nice, very, very, very elaborate feeling. It just feels good in here. I like it.
I will say it does look very good. The train stations do look nice, but they should just convert the train stations into nice public sitting areas.
No, I don't think they should. I don't think they should. Los Angeles Union Station was probably one of the most disappointing, actually, in person. Like, I just really didn't vibe with it too much. But it was all right. I mean, it wasn't bad, but it wasn't, like, the greatest. The train station in Seattle was actually pretty cool. We got to see all the train stations along the way, and some of them weren't even worth mentioning. But the one up here, King Street Station, now this is a train station. Take a gander at the inside of this thing, if I can get a good picture of the inside of it. Here we go. That's the inside. Very nice. Very, very nice.
It was a station fit for King
Street Station. But still, really cool place. Really liked it. Seattle was just cool. I like Seattle. What can I say? I thought Seattle was really neat. Really cool. It was clean and it looked nice, and there was just a lot to do here. But anyways, also I liked how close everything was to the harbor. Also, they have an exhibition for the Titanic. We have a museum in Pigeon Forge for the Titanic. But I don't really think it's a museum. I think it's more like an attraction, honestly. But yeah, I guess, yeah. But one thing I didn't get to do, one thing I sadly did not get to do while I was here, I didn't get to go up the Seattle Space Needle. And I know a lot of people are like, oh, it's kind of like a waste of money and all that. But I still wanted to because I wanted to see Mount Rainier. But it was kind of cloudy some of the time. Well, a good amount of the time I was there. And the only time it was sunny, I was literally all the way over there on that part of the of Seattle. So I really couldn't get over there easily. And I really couldn't find a lot of places to park around there quickly. So I didn't get to go up the Seattle Space Needle. But maybe we will in the future. Because that's the view you get from the Seattle Space Needle. And that looks cool.
Yeah, I thought it looks pretty cool, actually. It looks very nice.
Very nice. Very nice. I don't know why I'm starting to cough so badly. And look at these container ships, Matthew. I mean, these are the big boys.
Man, I tell you what, this place is nice, but you got to have the cash. You got to be a player to live here. I tell you what, the cost of living is high, and apparently the property crimes are high. And also, they won't let me have my guns. And also, you got to live on the outskirts of town to be able to merely afford something that's, pretty good from what I can tell. So it looks nice. It sounds like maybe a good place to visit, but I'm not sure if it's going to be a settling point.
Oh, Matthew, you silly goose. Maybe it will be one day. Maybe it will be. But it's a cool place. I mean, look, they have a Four Seasons. $458 a night. Really impresses some people to stay in places like this.
I don't find anything impressive about Four Seasons, to be honest with you. I feel like the building looks nice, but like the hotel room, it's like any other hotel. But you're paying 4 seasons worth of your salary to stay there.
Yeah, I don't like it. Also, I think that a lot of people who really put a lot into Four Seasons hotels are honestly like really materialistic, because I think a bed's a bed. You can pay $100 a night for it, or 400 or 500, but a bed's a bed. So that's kind of like my basic understanding of it. But I might be a little goofy. Might not be materialistic enough for some. But anyways, with that, I hope that does address that well. Before we move on, I did want to show y'all this. This is the harbor of Seattle. Look at that. Pretty cool, right? Pretty neat. It's a pretty big area, actually. A bigger one is the port of Tacoma. Look at that. Giant container port. Large amounts of ships.
That excuse me.
Wow. Wow.
Honestly, that was not a bit right there. That was actually me coughing. That was very odd. But honestly, like, not a bad port. But to be honest with you, I probably wouldn't want to live in the port.
Well, obviously not, you silly goose. No one want to live in
See,
the
if things
port.
go sideways and the cost of living is very high, we might find ourselves living in the port. Talking about, oh, hello guys, it's Enforcer Matt for live from the port.
But they have the Museum of American Cars. They have a BMW Isetta. They had the
Oh, there's our
Flintstone
next
mobile.
car. There's our next car right there.
This is the new Cadillac after sanctions. This is the Volkswagen minibus. There's a that looks kind of like a Packard, honestly, but I can't really tell. An older fire truck with like newer wheels on it, newer tires. I mean, we have these cars right here, the Alfa Romeo, I think. We had
Yes, 4C.
we had the Flintstone mobile, honestly my favorite. We also have a Scat Pack.
That is not a Scat Pack, man. I think that's a Mustang.
I never said I was right. We also have these. I don't even know
Oh,
what
look
the
at
hell.
that. They have an Aston Martin. Look at that. Scroll back up. They've got the Aston Martin. Look at that. That's a DB something.
Look at that. They got an old fire engine. Look at that. They got BMWs. Oh, look at those.
Oh, boy. That's a Z4 right there on the left. A racing model. GTR or something like that. That's a M8. Oh, look. It's a Lamborghini Aventador SV Speciale or something like that. Oh, look. It's this thing.
It's this thing. They have a Tucka. They have a Tucka 48. Pretty cool. They have all kinds of stuff here, Matthew. They have all kinds of stuff. They have a museum for everything in this greatest Seattle area. They even have a museum of glass. Wow.
Museum. I thought at first you said it. I said something else. I was like,
Look at that ass.
Museum of Ass, the home of the hot dog man.
Aw, man, I really be putting out that ass every day. Aw, man. The art museum. I always hate art museums. I just never really get the appeal of them.
That person's whole stance while they're sitting there on that bench personifies what it feels like to sit in an art museum.
Yeah, it really does, honestly. I just don't get modern art, folks. I never will. Like, I like.
Man, I honestly tried to like sort of like it, I guess you could say. But I went to the art museum on a thing in college because they're like, we're going to have to go to the art museum and write a paper about it, even though this is about political science. I was like, oh, that makes sense. So we went to the art museum and they said, you, sir, pointed to me, what do you think this painting means? And it was like some abstract, goofy shit on the painting. I was like, what does it mean? It looks like blobs of paint to me. Like, it doesn't mean much. And they're like, well, that's not very nice. I was like, I wasn't trying to be nice. I'm just being honest. It's like, what do you want me to lie? It's like, bro, it's like, what are we going to get into, like an argument here in the middle of the art museum? I don't see anything on the wall, bro. It looks like hell.
I remember coming here. I had to do the same thing as you, and I didn't even have the same degree as you. This art museum made no damn sense. Like, you would look at this and they'd be like, find the meaning in it. And I'm like, it doesn't have any meaning. I don't know what the hell that's supposed to be, like, at all. Like, I have no clue. And then they tell you that you can't be wrong, and then the whole thing was telling you how you were wrong and what it really meant. And I was like,
like, you want me to be honest? This looks mildly satanic, if you want me to be honest. This looks like something that could be straight out of the Museum of Satan or something like that.
It looks like a garbage truck from Waste Management dropped a pile of shit out of the back of it on the street. That's what it looks like. And this is actually neat, like this fashion side of things. Like, that's kind of cool to me. Like, I'm not really into that, but still neat. Like, it's neater than what else is there. But like, most of it is like, what the hell is it? Like, this. What is this? What is that supposed to be? What is it supposed to be? Like, you would have to, like, someone has to. What is this? This is fish bones on a canvas that means nothing to anyone. Looks like shit, and it is. I just absolutely loathe modern artists because there's nothing that really has to do with actually capturing beauty or anything like that, or emotion in anything. It's just all abstract. And abstract is just an excuse to be lazy, really. That's what it is. Because, like, look at artists from the past. Like, let me go pull up Romanticist paintings from the Romanticist period. Let's see, paintings. Here we go. Let me go show you all these. because these are really something. Like this one, like that conveys a lot. Like it conveys mystery, the nature, the intrigue of it. You know, look at this.
Yeah.
Like
I like
it's
those.
it's so beautiful. Look at this. This is a painting of the beginning of the industrial era, and it just captures so much in the painting. You know, like it captures the quaintness of the villages, the humble villagers working on their farms, and in the meanwhile, the absolute hells of the fires of industrial furnaces are burning behind them and changing the landscape forever. Like it's like these paintings really do convey much, and they're beautiful to look at. You can look at them for hours.
Yeah. Also, you know, a form of modern art that I actually do like. I like the street art, not when it like is nasty graffiti all over the place. So I can't stand how like disorganized that looks. And also, once again, like I don't like just like chaotic paintings all over the place. But the Banksy paintings, I actually kind of like those. Have you seen those, like the Banksy like London street paintings?
Let me go pull up the Banksy paintings.
You're about to pull the most ridiculous example one, I assume.
No. Actually, like I'm thinking of a meme. I'll explain the meme in a second. But the Banksy paintings are actually pretty neat.
I like these. Like, I'm not sure what the like message is behind it. I like that. See that one right there? It's like the guy holding the umbrella in the rain and the kid out in it, like over there. I kind of like that. Like that. I like the colors and stuff, and that's pretty like unique looking.
It's pretty neat. Like I think it is pretty neat. Dude, I really like this one. It looks like Napoleon crossing the Alps leading up to the Battle of Marengo. You know, that famous painting from like 1804? It's like the same horse and everything. But Napoleon shrouded in like a red veil. That's a pretty cool one. Like I like that one. Some like of the like I guess you could say the graffiti art is cool, but some of it's just really lame. Like some of it's just terrible. But Banksy does a pretty good job. But there's this one thing, man, like let me go find the Banksy meme because there's a meme that went around a while ago. Hold up. Oh, dude, I hope I can find it. Here we go. It's this one. Every time I see this dude, I get a laugh. Here we go. It says the kid, you know, with a balloon, and it says war bad on it, and then all the world leaders are crying and stuff. And then it says every war is now over because of some shit-ass Banksy painting. I think of that every single time I hear of a Banksy painting. Man. I think of that meme. Like, his art's actually pretty good, but this meme is honestly just hilarious. Like, I can't deny that.
I like the little like thing in the corner of the news thing. It says Banksy. I like that. Also, by the way, they did who is that? Is that George Bush on the left?
I can't tell if that's Bush or Biden, honestly. Like, I can't tell.
On the left, man, that's the right.
Oh, dude, no, that's Putin.
Oh, shit. I thought that was George Bush. I was like, dude, like, they did him wrong. Honestly, it looks like Bush in the face, and it looks like Putin's, like, bald head. Dude, I'm not gonna lie. Like, I know that's obviously Biden over there on the right, but I don't know who drew Biden, but I don't know what they were going for with that one.
Bro, I don't know either. But honestly, man, the meme is hilarious, man. Like, you'll think of this every time you think of Banksy now. You'll think of every war now is over because some shit has Banksy painting and Thanksy. Like, dude. Bro, I think of that every single time I think of a Banksy painting. Like, I don't know why I found this to be so funny, but I think of this every month or so, and I'll be like, man, that was a funny meme. But beyond that, let me go pull up some other graffiti art. Because the graffiti is cool. It's sometimes. So let me see here. So some of them that I don't find cool are like these. I don't get them.
Oh yeah, I hate this junk. It's just like it's like what you'd imagine if you got high or something. You imagine something. It's like the painting what you see when you're high or something like that.
Like that one's actually pretty neat. Like a somewhat realistic look of Einstein. Like that's pretty neat. But most of them
$600 for it too.
Damn. Okay, that's not neat anymore. That's terrible. These just I just don't get them most times. It's the Monopoly man with an M16 with a grenade launcher.
Man, I like that. That like hustle and grind art. You know what I'm talking about? It's like the Monopoly man holding the money and talking about get on that money grind or something like that. You know what I'm talking about? It's like the finance bros like motivational wall posters and stuff like that. It's like, man, I've had the most like comedy like field day with that stuff. It's hilarious.
Wait, hold up. I know what you're talking about. Hold up. Hold up. Yeah, I know you're. You're talking about this? You're talking about this, aren't you?
Yeah, that kind of junk.
Yeah.
it's like they take like cartoon characters, they make them out to be like thugs, and then they have them holding up like stacks of cash, talking about stay on your grind or something like that. It's like, bro, what the hell is this? Man, what in the hell?
Oh my god. I remember so many. I need to take this off screen to check the others before we scroll down. But oh my god, dude. I always get such a laugh out of these. These are just ridiculous. Dude, there's one for like Bugs Bunny in all of them, really. Let me go Gangster Bugs Bunny. They ought to pull it up really easy. Oh, dude, exactly on the money. Like, it's on the money. There it is.
Man, honestly, man, it's like why is he look like he's on cocaine? It's like his eyes are like, the veins are bulging out of his eyes, and why's he got all these gold rings? I mean, this looks like, is this motivation to some people, like being a gangster with the gold rings and the money and all that stuff? I mean, it's just crazy.
Man, it feels good to be a gangster. But dude, I think there's one for the Flintstones that I saw before. Let me go see. Flintstones. Yes, there is. Oh my god. Bro, they're so stupid every single time. Every damn time. Let me check the screen before I put this up there. It's just so dumb. They're just so stupid.
Oh man, Fred Flintstone tatted up. Man, he got that dog bone on him.
Bro, and then this one. What the hell? What are these?
Oh my god. Man, they made him really out of proportion. Like his head does not match his body.
Oh my god. What is this one? What is this?
Bro, I don't even know. Man, Barney's fiending.
Barney is hot dog man after he's had like 9,000 flop videos. Like that's what he's looking like these days. Oh man. Oh my goodness, dude. These are honestly hilarious, man. Honestly, a good pick. But beyond that, yeah, the art stuff, getting back to the whole art thing, which started us off, I don't get modern art. I think it's stupid, and I think it sucks. Like, just being completely honest. Like, if you are a modern artist out there, you are an absolute bane to creativity, and you use this abstract stuff as an excuse for laziness. Like, actually make good art that people can look at and appreciate off the bat, just for its visual beauty. Like, I think that's really a big thing. And also, this art museum just looks dumb as hell from the road. Look at that.
Mm-hmm.
This is stupid looking. Like, buildings that look a lot nicer than that exist all over the world, Like for example, I'm not saying that Birmingham is like Paris or anything, but let's go to Paris and let's go to the Musée du Louvre and take a look at this. This is an art museum. It's like, this really deserves to be an art museum. It's a really beautiful building. Has a great architectural style. Really conveys the whole you're in France kind of a thing. It has a very French architectural style. And it's like, this is nice. The art museum in Birmingham is soulless. It doesn't have any soul, and it looks lame. But anyways, I hope we addressed that well, and I thank you so much once again for support. I don't know how the hell we got on a rabbit hole that long, but honestly, that one was an absolute blast. I really enjoyed doing that one. That was fun. What's this? The Grand Palais? Dude, is this the Great Exhibition Hall?
That's the Great Grand Marshal Hall. Le messenger, don't shoot the messenger. I'm just taking you the message.
I mean, I suppose. But I was wanting to see the interior of the scene. This looks just like the Great Exhibition that was in London in like 1854, like the same lattice works and everything. Really neat. I like those buildings. But anyways, it is time for us to move on to the next one. So what do we got, Matthew?
So our next one goes to Marion Deemer, who's a longtime channel legend as well. And a huge shout out to Marion for that $40 support. And we appreciate you very much, Marion. And thank you very much for supporting the channel. And we do appreciate it. And Marion said, thank you for your rabbit holes.
Thank you, Marion, for enjoying them. And thank you for supporting the channel and helping it to keep on running so that we can always do them. Because honestly, it's one of the funnest moments of the show that I get to do. I love them. And so with that, thank you so much once again. I hope that has addressed that incredibly well. And with that, we are on to the next one.
All right. And our next one.
What
was that?
Oh, it's just me calling.
Oh, our next one goes to Ken Hanley, who puts in a $20 donation. And thank you very much, Ken, for that $20 support. And he said, Enforcer Matt, what are the chances that either North Korea or Iran lob a nuke at us to cause the escalation to World War III? And honestly, in my opinion, if you're asking me, I would say the chances are probably less than 1% because North Korea is honestly a peewee country, and they really don't stand a chance unless they have the help of China. Iran is also another peewee country in reality, and they don't really stand a chance either without the help of Russia or China. So neither one of them are going to do that. It would definitely not be them. They may threaten it, but they won't do it. Less than 1%. But thank you for the support. And Enforcer, what say you?
I would say that the chances of that happening are next to zero. No one would ever do that off the bat. That's just batty. That's insane. And even they would know that. And they don't want that smoke. And so with that, I hope that is addressed that well. At least the best I can, in my opinion. And with that, we are on to the next one.
And the next one goes to Howard Mendelson, who puts in a 20. And thank you very much, Howard, for that $20 support. And he says, Enforcer for Secretary of Transportation.
Hey, and I thank you so much for support and helping this channel to keep on running and putting in your vote for me for Secretary of Transport. And so with that, thank you so much once again. I gotta tell you, folks, the sore throat side of things, I never really got over it. And interestingly enough, I'm starting to taste blood right now, so I think I'm kind of reaching my limit here. So thank you so much once again, and we are on to the next one.
Our next one goes to John W.D. Ferguson, who puts in a 20. And thank you very much, John, for that $20 support. And he said, check out number 41 boundary tablet, 3 train tracks, no roads between Russia and China.
Number 41 boundary track. Let's see. Right here? Yeah, there it is. Yeah, that would be the place that material is most likely being transported out. So I would say good on you for finding that. And also a big congratulations and a thanks for you for supporting this channel and helping this channel to keep on running. And very interesting catch right there. And so with that, we are on to the next one.
All right, and our next one goes to Yagami Light, who puts in a 20. And thank you very much, Yagami, for that first ever super chat on the channel and helping to keep us running. And also, they were impressed by the fact that I was able to talk and type in the chat at the same time and also moderate and do everything else, including the polls. And that's just a result of plenty of caffeination. And luckily, it does work. But thank you very much for that support once again, and we do appreciate it. And Enforcer, what say you?
I got to thank you for the support and the kind words and helping this channel to keep on running, because if it wasn't for folks like you, we wouldn't be able to make this thing a reality. And so with that, we are on to the next one.
And our next one goes to Ari Sawini, who puts in a 20. And huge shout out to Ari for that $20 support. And we do appreciate it very much, Ari. And huge shout out to you once more. And of course, Kiwi, White, and Finn coming through once again. And Enforcer, what say you?
I got to thank you all both, Ari Sweeney, Kiwi, Wife, and Finn, for the support and helping this channel to keep on running, because it's folks like y'all who make this thing possible. And with that, we are on to the next one.
And our next one goes to Neil Vizanot. And Neil puts, hold on a second. All my screens just went dark. What just happened? Okay. Give me a second here. My Chrome just crashed. Everything just crashed. Oh my God. Now let me try to get all my Chrome tabs pulled back up again. It just crashed on me. So stall, Enforcer. I am literally, my control panel and everything's gone. So give me a second.
All right. So we're going to be trying to stall as best we can. And some of y'all are saying, oh no, he needs to get that checked out. No, I've already had it checked out. Already paid about $400 for a doctor's visit. So that way they could tell me it was just a sore throat and to get through it. The problem is that I'm wearing my sore throat out because I got back to work as soon as I could. Is once again, when I say this, folks, I'm not trying to pity people and supporting the channel, but this is reality of our situation. If we're not on air and we're not making money, and we have bills to pay. So we kind of have to be working nonstop to be able to make sure to support ourselves. So as soon as I could, really when I wasn't even doing better, we got right back on air and went right back at it. And we go at it full strength because we want y'all to have an enjoyable show. And that's just absolutely running my vocal cords to the breaking limit, really my entire throat. I've run them out so badly right now that it's hard to swallow pretty much at any given moment. It hurts really badly. And also, all right. Now, just at this moment, I'm starting to taste a little bit of blood, and that's why we're trying to hurry this thing on up and round it on out. But Matthew, we're on to that next one.
So our next one is going to go to Neil Vizanot. And Neil put in a $10 donation, and thank you very much, Neil, for that support. He said, sorry, LSA, I've been feeling like crap for a while, but I haven't forgotten about the LSA or Ukraine. And also, Neil, I hope you're doing better. I'm not sure what's causing it, but whatever it is, I hope you get on the mend. And of course, you're a longtime channel legend here, and we always love to have you. So it's good to see you once again, and thank you for that support. And Enforcer, what say you?
Thank you so much for the support and helping this channel to keep on running, because if it wasn't for folks like you, wouldn't be able to make this channel possible. We wouldn't be able to keep it running. I hope that whatever you're going through improves in the background. And I do thank I do thank you greatly for the support. So with that, I hope that does address that well. And with that, we are on to the next one. Matthew, I can only fake it as best I can. If I'm coughing to death, I'm coughing to death. I can't really fix that too much. But we are on to the next one.
Go get you some water, man. I'll stall while you go get you some water or a cough drop or something, because it's not good to sit there and cough like that. So yeah, I'll stall for a second. You go grab you a little water or something. But anyways, folks, since the Enforcer is going to go get some water to try to alleviate the cough, I'm going to continue pulling up my Twitter tab because I'm still trying to reopen all my pages. But nonetheless, like I said earlier, and like I kind of said and alluded to on the earlier part of the question segment, whenever we do go on this trip, which is very shortly on Saturday, and we start leaving for it, I'm going to try to film everything possible on this trip, including the Enforcer coughing and hacking, and also all of our adventures to, fro, and yonder, including the airplane, everything. Of course, that's not an OPSEC issue because we're flying on an airplane. It's no shock. But everything else is an OPSEC thing. But we're going to film as much of it as possible and show you all kinds of cool stuff. Now, I think y'all will be impressed to see some of the stuff. Obviously, there's some cool things we're going to see along the way. But like I said, though, mainly business, mainly try to check out the area for trying to move to it. But maybe someday we'll be able to return to some of these areas and actually get a little bit of a tourist experience to it as well. But anyways, Enforcer, are you back?
I'm back. Let's get to it.
All right, so our next super chat goes to Luke Zitten, who puts in a 10. And thank you very much, Luke, for that $10 support. He said, couldn't the U.S. make a great deal with Mexico to dispose of the cartels together and then move our industry to Mexico? And that seems like it would be great for both of us. And stick it to China.
I thank you for the support, and that's an interesting idea. I'm not entirely sure if that would be doable, because there's a lot of political things at play in Mexico that would make that pretty difficult. Not to get into them in depth because I'm trying to stifle my cough, but it's possible. We'll just have to see how that would play out. But I do thank you for the support and bringing up a very interesting idea, and that would be a good way to slight the Chinese. And so with that, thank you once again, and we are on to the next one.
And our next one goes to Kachulian343, who puts in a 5 as well. And thank you very much, Kachulian, for that $5 support. And he said, I normally don't talk about this, but today I sent I sent Russia President signed LSA sends its regards, and I encourage all to do the same. It's signed by Rocket.
Thank you so much for supporting. I want the channel to keep on running, and if folks want to support Sign My Rocket, they sure can. It's a pretty neat little group. We actually had them do something for us for free. They just wanted to do it to say thanks to our channel way back in the day. And it's still in the intro to this day. So with that, thank you once again for the support and helping this channel to keep on running. I hope that does address that well. And with that, we are on to the next one.
And our next one goes to Adam McLean, who puts in a $10 donation. And thank you very much, Adam, as well, for that $10 support. And once again, support the channel and help me keep it on running. He said, say your voice and do not mention the super chat. And we will let him save his voice. But thank you very much, Adam, for that support. And we do appreciate it very much. And thank you very much for Save the Enforcer Fund. And our next one here goes to The Real LLP. Oh, the real one, who puts in a 5. It says, Slava Ukraine from Troutdale, Oregon.
Hey, and Slava Ukraini, all the way from Oregon. A huge thanks for the support and helping this channel to keep on running. And with that, we are on to the next one.
And our next one goes to Ogre Online, who puts in the 5. And huge shout out to the Ogre for that support. They said they have probably known that China's been helping Russia for a while, honestly, and nothing the U.S. can do about it. And tariffs hurt us, not them. It actually hurts us both. It hurts both countries. And also, I said that earlier myself, like off air. China's probably, or excuse me, the U.S. has probably known about China's involvement for a long time. And it's just now coming to light for whatever strategic reason they're deciding to bring it out right now, probably because of the increased tariff tensions. That's probably why they're saying that right now. But this has been happening for some time. I'm sure we've had intelligence on it. It's been probably kept secret, but it's been happening. I would agree with you. But Enforcer, what say you?
I would agree. It's been happening. They probably didn't know. It's just that now they want to come out and state it. But I do thank you for the support and help with this channel to keep on running. And with that, we are on to the next one.
And our next one goes to Ed Baines, who puts in the 5. And huge shout to Ed for that support. He said, one strategy I have read for taking out China is to cut off their oil. Without oil, they cannot feed the population.
Well, that's true. That's why we would need to stay in control of the Middle East for the large part, because that's where they get most of it from. And so with that, I thank you for the support and having this channel to keep on running. And with that, we are on to the next one.
And our next one goes to FL Camera, or Florida Camera, who puts in 2 $5 donations. And thank you very much, Florida Camera, for that support. They said, oh, damn, damn knew China was in this, but didn't think they were proxy or war gaming the U.S. on multiple fronts. Keep up the great coverage. And we also sold airplanes to China to fight the Japanese in 41.
I thank you for supporting that. The last fact is true. And I also got to thank you so much for helping this channel to keep on running and enjoying our reporting and coverage abilities, because I hope that we've been able to set a good trend tonight. And so with that, thank you so much once again. I hope that does address that well. And with that, we are on to the next one.
Also, Kenneth Lovchi, he said, I don't see the logic in keeping something like that secret. Like, for example, if the U.S. knew that China was supplying weapons to Russia and they kept that secret. Honestly, I do see a logic to it, because there's probably many other things the USA is already well aware of through our intelligence. But in the interest of not letting things get too out of hand and sparking World War III, sometimes we'll overlook it. Like, for example, when drones fly into NATO countries and we sort of overlook that and don't really make a big deal about it, that's part of the reason why they keep that secret, is because they don't want to hasten World War III. They're trying to stave it off as long as possible. And, of course, this right here is going to hasten the World War III if it's ever going to happen. This news right here would hasten it. So with it coming out now amidst these tensions for the trade tariffs, I would say that's probably a strategic release in my opinion. But with that, we're moving on to our next one here, which goes to Devin Seals, who puts in a 5. And thank you very much, Devin, for that $5 support. He said, I spent 17 years as a combat engineer, and I appreciate y'all's take on what's happening around the world, and keep up that good work.
Hey, and thank you so much for your kind words, and we will try our best. And it's also good to hear that we have former service members here watching. We have a lot of them, actually. So a huge thanks to you once again for support. I hope that does address that well. And with that, we are on to the next one.
And our next one goes to Plazoth, who puts in a 3, along with Marc-Andre Brunette, who also put in a 3, and Run EXE, who put in a 2 as well. And huge shout out to Plazoth, Mark, and Run EXE for that support and helping to keep us running once more. And a huge shout out to all 3 of you. And we also have another super chat, this time from Ryan H., who puts in a 5. And thank you very much, Ryan, also. He said, hello, enforcers. Hello, Ryan. He said, what are your thoughts on the exoplanet K2-18b and the reported signature for life detected in its atmosphere and LSA? And I did hear that, Ryan. I heard about that today. It sounds like life as in microbial or something like that, or maybe not like intelligent life as we know it. So it's interesting, but generally speaking, it just sounds like another space tale to me. Not to minimize it any, but it doesn't sound like we found, like ET or something like that, which would probably be the biggest discovery we could make. Now, it sounds like it's a bit of a smaller one. But nonetheless, if life is detected, I guess you could call that a big one, because that means that intelligent life might definitely exist if you can prove the existence of other life on a different planet. So, interesting. But Enforcer, what say you?
Thank you for the support. I really didn't hear much about it today, but I would have to be with Matthew. It's probably just another space tale of a kind. I don't really get much into the whole finding life thing, unless they actually find an animal that they can prove exists on another planet beyond a microbial level. Then that would be something to me. But I believe they already found some sort of bacterial remains on the surface of Mars a while ago, proving that there was life on Mars at some point. It's just that it no longer exists. So it's a discovery, but it's not a major one, at least in my opinion. But with that, I do thank you for the support and help this channel to keep on running, and I hope that does address that well. And with that, we are on to the next one.
And with that is actually our last super chat of the night. So once again, a huge shout out to everybody tonight for supporting the channel yet again. It is now time to jump into our live chat questions and our Morse code decoders of the stream. And our Morse code, also excuse me for that, by the way. I don't know what's causing that problem right there, but hopefully that fixes itself. I'm kind of like doing the Enforcers thing now. So the Morse code of the night, we have the entire roster. Cliff Simonson, Mark Hodges, Earl Bernew, Kevin J, Paul Schultz, Dave Millsaps, Her Royal Fluffiness, Arabelle Garbo, Johnny Dog, and Norm Pritchett. They said, the Morse says from the LSA Signal Corps, China has been behind all of the actions against the West and the U.S. It's the Axis powers and LLT, LSA. And great job, guys, as usual.
And ding, 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 ding. That is the Morse code message of the night. Y'all got it dead on the nail. That's the sound of money. And I got to congratulate y'all massively for getting that correct for the 1,149th day of the war. Y'all continue to get that correct time and time again. And it's always impressive to see. And so with that, it is time for us to move on into the live chat questions. I wish we could chit-chat for longer, but my voice has met its limit, and so we're going to be getting 3 live chat questions and rounding this thing out. So we are on to the third to last question of the night.
So this one goes to David Dornblaser, and David said, any more news on the destruction of the Northrop Grumman facility that produced the solid rocket motors for the new ICBMs? And if nobody had heard about this, I covered it in the short war video today. We did not cover it tonight in the stream, but a Northrop Grumman facility, which does produce those solid rocket motors, it exploded, and we don't know the cause of it, and it's located in Promontory, Utah. We don't know what caused it, and there's been no investigation and conclusion as of yet as to what led to that. But in my opinion, I would say that I'm waiting to see the results of that investigation, because in Europe, there have been many hybrid warfare attacks on defense facilities just like that one. And I wonder if it's finally made it over here to the United States in some form or another, because I've never seen an ICBM solid rocket motor fuel facility like that simply go up. That's very unusual, and I'm very curious about it. But luckily, we were told there was no casualties, but that's just the current statement at the moment. That could change. I'm not really sure. But Enforcer, what say you?
Mad that you addressed that incredibly well. I wouldn't have much to add. So with that, we're on to the second to last question of the night.
This one goes to Tom Exman. He says, here's a good question, Matt. Have China's ships been targeted in the Red Sea, or do they have a pass?
I believe they actually have been targeted in the past once. I guess. I mean, I don't really think they get a pass technically, but the Chinese don't really work like that, where they care about their own getting attacked out there. It's not really like that for them. But anyways, I hope that it's addressed it the best I can, and we are on to the final question of the night. And so, who is the last person to throw in the lucky last question of the night?
And that viewer is Sabbath Courier, who says, how important to Ukraine is recapturing the Crimean Peninsula?
The recapture of the Crimean Peninsula is not necessarily important to Ukraine. It's more so necessarily important to the United States of America and American Western interests, as the Black Sea Fleet has a large operational naval base in the area of Sevastopol, and for this reason, it would be vital for Ukraine to be able to reclaim it for our purposes, not really for theirs. As far as Ukraine is concerned, their people live inside of Crimea, and they want it back for that reason, but for a strategic reason, it doesn't really hold that much value to them, but it holds a lot more value to us. But with that, I hope that does address that well, and we've reached the end of tonight's stream. Sorry everyone for starting to go into uncontrollable coughing fits at the end. I was trying to control it the best I can, but it happens. Nevertheless, I do thank you all so much once again for watching, and if you all have enjoyed, please make sure to like, comment, and subscribe, and we will see you all tomorrow for our last stream before we go on our small hiatus. And so with that, good night, good luck, take care, stay safe, Slava Ukraini, and long live the Lee Spring Army. The Lee Spring Army will never die.
And a big shout out to the 50,000 people that joined us tonight. A nice 50,000 round number right there, I must say. And also 2,700 people smacked the like button, and we do appreciate that very much. And with that, folks, we will see you all tomorrow night at 10 p.m. Eastern for the last stream until we go on our short little hiatus to go discover the location of Enforcer 3.0 HQ. But until then, we will also maybe be making a short war video tomorrow if there is enough news to cover, just like we did today. And until then, I will say, Slava Ukraine. Here on Slava. Get some rest and good night.